Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 1 of what if Naruto was in Hazbin Hotel and got a harem. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. Who turned on the lights? Because it was bright in here. Too damn bright for his liking by half. Naruto creaked an eye open as his world lurched back with a start. He immediately wished it hadn't, because the very fiber of his being ached in the worst of ways, as though his every cell had been dipped in acid and summarily set on fire for good measure. The pain was everywhere. Everyone, everything, a gaping void inside him ready to swallow everything whole, should he let it. Breathing became an effort and his back bowed in pain as he curled in on himself, clutching his head against the ringing in his ears. Gritting his teeth against the existential agony currently consuming him, he flared his chakra and stamped it down into the dark corner of his mind. It fought him tooth and nail the entire way, but he managed to cage it nonetheless. From there, he finally managed to wrangle enough of his senses to take stock of his surroundings. He found himself sprawled out on his back in a strange room of some sort. An unadorned yet still brightly resplendent ceiling greeted his gaze. Trying to move soon proved to be an exercise in futility. He barely had the strength to turn his head, much less breathe. Where was he? The lost thing he remembered was what, exactly? Well, that was a problem. He was too darn tired to move. Too, his strength was returning, albeit slowly. Racking his brain, he struggled to recall something, anything really, that might bring some small semblance of sense to this situation. Alright, calm down, Naruto. You're fine. It's just really bright here, wherever here is. Focus. The last thing I remember is Sasuke. He'd fought him, blown his arm off, and been run through for it. A flickering memory tugged at him, collapsing on the ground beside him, bleeding out, darkness creeping into his vision, numbness. Excuse me. A soft voice intruded upon his thoughts. Are you all right? You've been laying there a while. Is there anything I can do to help? Shock lent him strength he didn't know he had. He jolted upright and came face to face with a slim, freckle-faced young woman clad in a periwinkle white yet purple dress. Wow, she looked like a princess in that getup. Despite her regal attire, she looked about as startled to see him as he was her. Her skin shone like silver snow, thoroughly complementing her long thigh-length hair and rather messy bangs. Her eyes were a lovely light blue, framed by dark lashes, but perhaps most noticeable of all were the 6 white wings sprouting from her back, 3 to each shoulder. Lastly, he noticed the telltale halo hovering just over her head. His mind fizzled out spectacularly. Hi, I'm Emily. A bright smile tugged at her lips as she chirruped happily. Though, you can call me Emmy. Even. She flailed her hands when he didn't answer. Whatever you want. I go by whatever. Naruto. He found himself giving his name, unbidden. Naruto. Then. It's so nice to meet you. She took hold of his hands and babbled right on over him. I can't remember the last time a soul appeared before one of us directly like this. You must have been exceptionally good while you were alive. Or powerful. Her head tilted a touch to the left as she placed a finger to her chin. Maybe both. When he was alive, he barely heard her over the ringing in his ears. Emily pressed her head to his chest, listening despite his panic. You have a strange heartbeat. That's new. I've never met an angel quite like you. Angel. Stop. Think. Focus. He had to regain control of this conversation. Hello, he managed, marshalling his thoughts. It's nice to meet you. Can you tell me where I am? I don't know how I got here. But a small part of him was starting to understand. The girl's cherubic smile faded in the face of his query, but only for a moment. I'm sorry. Releasing his hands, she stepped back and clasped both palms over her stomach. I'm sure this comes as quite the shock. Usually you would have appeared before the pearly gates, boot. His thoughts began to unravel as she trailed off into a nervous giggle. Pearly gates. Yup. Her head bobbed. Here, I'll show you. Come with me. Emily offered him her hand like the pure soul she was, and numbed, he took it and allowed her to lead him out the room, out the door, then outside. If he'd thought the world bright before, it was downright blazing now, so much that he had to look away at first. But once his vision cleared. Welcome to heaven. Emily swept out a hand before her. You're new, so I'll spare you the song this time. Naruto blinked. He blinked hard. Sunny skies. Check. Pearly gates. Check. Wings on his back. No wait, just Amanute. He whirled and craned his neck over his shoulder, realizing what had been itching him for the better part of 5 minutes now, the part he was too distracted to notice, until she pointed it out. There was a weight there now, one that hadn't existed prior. He couldn't see them, not completely, not properly, but now he was very much aware of them. They were, well, quite large actually. His shoulder muscles twitched in stress and unbidden, so too did his new appendages. And was it just his imagination, or did he have more than 2 wings? Oh, my sweet father. Would you look at those? Emily squealed in sudden delight, confirming his concern. This is even better than I thought. You didn't just ascend here after dying, you were reborn. You're, well, new. Something about the way she said the word caused his right ear to twitch, but try as he might, he couldn't muster an angry response when faced with that innocent smile. You're incredible. Something sour stirred within him as he let go of her hand and turned away. Not feeling incredible. You should. She rounded on him and took him by the sleeve, tugging him back to her as she began to babble again. I've never seen someone reborn as a seraphim out of the blue this. We haven't had one in years. No wait, you have more wings than me, so what does that make you? Hold on a second, let me count. Quick as a sunbeam she darted behind him and began poking and prodding, counting and cooing. Numb, he let her. 1, 2. This wasn't happening. 3, 4. It couldn't be happening. 5, 6. He couldn't be dead. 7, 8. He just couldn't be. 9, and 10. She finished with a happy chirrup. That's amazing. Even Sarah doesn't have that many. She'll be delighted to meet you. Naruto scarcely heard her as his heart hammered in his chest. He had 10 wings. The exact same number of the 10 tails. And he couldn't hear Kurama. Couldn't feel him. In his partner's place he felt a mighty presence that both was and was not him. Powerful, yet foreign all the same. Even a blonde man could have made the connection. Here, look. Emily conjured a mirror. Where had she gotten that? Between her palms and held it out for him. See for yourself. He accepted the looking glass with trembling fingers and nearly spat a curse at what he found there. It was his face all right, but he was changed. He still retained his whiskers and piercing blue eyes, but his once blonde hair had gone quite white and the dusky pallor of his skin was eerily akin to hers. Which meant. He started hyperventilating, breath coming in short gasps. No, no, no. The word heaven slipped through his fingers. His vision swam and he fainted. 0.0.0.0. Dark eyes opened. His skull absolutely ached. Where in the hell am I? A smiling shadow fell over his form. An apt choice of words, my good fellow. 0.0.0.0. Reality reasserted itself in a rush. Naruto heard voices as he came to, fragments of conversation in the dark. Some didn't sound best pleased. He heard a strange slurping sound. I'm just saying, what kinda angel faints? Fucking pussy. Someone coughed. I concur, sir. No angel worth their salt would collapse like that. So what are we waiting for? Let's kick him out and what? Give him to Lucifer? I think not. I ain't saying that. Cease. That's quite enough, Adam. Fiend, I'm sorry. Happy. Now, not like he can even hear me. I can, actually. Through blurry vision he beheld an eclectic band of what he could only assume were angels crowded around him. Well, look who's awake. Rise and shine, sleepyhead. First and foremost, he glimpsed a rather eccentric-looking individual clad in absurdly long white robes, the latter festooned with strange blue marks, an odd A on his chest, and outrageous golden sleeves. His wings were a noticeable shade of gold and, was that a horned mask he was wearing? He hoped so, because if it wasn't, that was the strangest angel he'd seen. And he'd seen a few strange things. The grin he wore more a sneer, really didn't exactly endear him to his cause, either. By contrast the young woman standing beside the colorful one looked even less kind. Not only did she favor colors of gray and silver, but her wings were an odd white black near the edges, further contrasting her already somewhat pallid complexion, piercing golden eyes and pale hair. A black halo sat atop her head with a spoke run through it, tilting a little now as she inclined her head to regard him. He didn't like the look in her eyes. It wasn't cold. He could deal with cold. No, her gaze was zealous, fanatical, callous. Look at him quivering, sir. Her lips pursed in a scowl as she planted a fist on her hip. He's clearly an aberration. Perhaps it would be best if we purged him. On just like that, he had an instant dislike for this woman. Wait, she'd said something about purging just now. Purging someone. Purging him. Another rush of emotion coursed through him, not panic, but anger, searing white hot in his veins. He flung himself off the bed and his new wings responded accordingly to his fury. They unfurled behind him in response to his sudden stress, all 10 of them at once. The sudden release of blinding brilliance buffeted both the broad and the bastard backward, hurling them against a wall with an audible crunch. He barely noticed. Here at last, he finally caught a proper glimpse of his new appendages in all their gilded glory. So that's what they look like. Not only were a bright feathered gold, replete with shining sunlight, but they were large. They felt strong, powerful, ready to be used. There was more to it than that. He knew how to use them, as thought he knowledge had been there all along. He flexed the muscles in his back and they answered the call, creating a mild downdraft to rustle his hair. It felt good. It felt natural. It felt right. A small tentative smile bloomed across his whiskered face. Maybe this wasn't so bad after all. Alas, the masked man recovered and got up in his face. What's wrong with you? Right, callous bastard and his bitch trying to get him killed. Should probably deal with that. He didn't want to die twice. Me, he all but spat the word, leering back at him. Your friend over there was talking about killing me just now. Did you expect me to take that lying down? A flicker of uncertainty crossed the man's mask before he rallied. Would you believe me if I said it was just a joke? His temper sparked into an inferno. If you call that a joke, then you've got a twisted sense of humor. Say that again, punk. I dare you. Naruto stepped forward. Calm yourself, Seraphim, and be welcome. A dusky hand settled on his shoulder before his rage could lunge forward and slug the bastard. You're in no danger here. He whirled and found someone who looked an awful lot like an older version of Emily looming over him, silent, slender, and stern. As though sensing that very thought, the smaller Seraphim in question poked out behind her and granted him a jaunty wave. Unbidden, he found himself returning it. His anger returned as he glared at her, sister. Mother. He couldn't tell, aren't I? He stared heatedly at her. Sure feels like it. For that, you have my most heartfelt apologies. She smiled at him and touched a hand to her collarbone, the gesture almost felt sincere. Almost. Then her gaze cut across the room, regarding the still recovering female angel who had so senselessly insulted him before, and her words caused him to reconsider. He is one of us, Lute. You will not speak ill of him. The now named woman clicked her tongue and looked away, a hot flush creeping up her face. Yes, ma'am. And you, Adam. The Seraphim, fixed him with her steely stare next. I expect better of you. The colorful angel wilted. Yeah, sure. He didn't sound sincere. I'll do better. All right, breathe. Calm down. He held onto his anger a moment more and let it go. His wings tucked themselves down against his back and he felt them recede, ready to be called upon at a moment's notice should he so desire. Emily flitted over to his side with that irresistibly innocent smile of her, and he felt his spirits lighten, just a little. See, she nudged him. What did I tell you? Isn't Sarah just awesome? She was certainly something. Now, then, she turned a motherly smile on them both. Why don't you both apologize and let bygones be bygones? Now it was Naruto's turn to bridle. Apologize. What did have to apologize for? Emily sided with him, bless her. Sarah, he didn't do anything wrong. Reborn though he may be, he did attack Adam. In fear for his life. Adam saw the moment and seized on it, rolling his shoulder. Yeah, man, you gave me a bruise. Bullshit. This guy was lying out his ass, that no good cheeky Sanuba. Breathe. Don't give in. Be the better man. The righteous fury in him wanted to shout and swear and sunder, but he could feel Emily staring at him. Emily, who had been so kind, so hospitable, so nice from the moment he first set foot into heaven. Fine. I'm sorry if you are. Reluctantly, he turned back to face the aggravating, arrogant angel. And you are who, exactly? Adam. Father of humanity, rockstar, and all-around badass. The lunatic flicked a finger gun his way. Pleasure's mine. Naruto eyed the hand, baffled by his brutish behavior. I've never heard of you. The masked man absolutely twitched. Really? I'm a pretty big deal. Nope. He forced a smile he didn't feel. So you're an angel. The very best. His brow furrowed. That didn't make any sense. Weren't angels supposed to be good? Emily undoubtedly was, and Sarah seemed the same, but Lute and especially this guy, there was something wrong with them. He could still sense emotions, negative or otherwise, and what he sensed right now smelled like a rotten pile of sludge curdled with expire milk and spiced with balsamic. Why does your soul stink? Sarah slapped a palm to her forehead. Oh, dear. Adam's smug smile died an ugly death, drenched itself in gasoline, and set itself on fire. Excuse me. You heard me. Something was awake deep inside of him now, and it would be held back no longer. You reek. How are you up here? A host of complicated emotions flashed across the angel's mask, there and gone in an instant, until only anger remained. You wanna go, newbie? Sorry, I'm not into jerks. The words escaped him before he could think to hold them back. But I'll kick your ass to kingdom come and back again if that's what you want. Luke bowled forward with fury. How dare you? Quiet, you. He chopped her over the head, casually causing her to bite her tongue. I'm in no mood for another fangirl. I got enough of those dealing with Sasuke. Adam puffed up. You dissin' my posse. Well, they clearly lack taste. That's it. Out came Adam's wings, his face twisting in fury as he jabbed a finger up under his chin. I don't give a rat's ass who you are or how many wings you have. I'm top dog around here and you better cut that shit out real quick because. By the sage, did this guy ever shut up? The itchy feeling returned tenfold, honesty incarnate, All filters removed, an open wound aching to lash out. It might have been the loss of Kurama, the realization that he was dead, or any other number of factors that drove him to do what he did next. Either way, the result was the same. All I hear is a yappy little chihuahua barking for attention. Luke's jaw clicked open. Emily gasped. Sarah balked. Adam. He sensed danger and twisted his head aside just as the first man thrust a hand forward. Not a moment later, a searing beam of light perforated the space his skull had occupied a second before. It drilled into the wall and left a smoking crater behind. Naruto flicked a glance toward it and shrugged. You missed. I ain't gonna miss again, you snarky little silver-tongued piece of SHI. Enough. Sarah pushed her way between them, wings flared. Boys please, there's no need for this. We're all angels here. She cast a meaningful glance his way, a plea for contrition. I'm sure our new friend didn't mean what he said. Naruto pursed his lips. No, I definitely did. How in the hell is that an angel? He's the literal opposite of one. Adam sprang to his feet, teeth bared. Oh, that does it. Whiskers. It is on like Donkey Kong. Naruto blinked. Donkey who now? Dude, I'm ancient and even I know that reference. You been living under a rock or something. Another dig at him being dead. He had spirit if nothing else. He would have liked this guy if he wasn't such an asshole, no. In that moment he knew they would never get along, not until the death of the universe. There was too much bad blood between them now, too much for even him to consider giving him a second chance. Short of a miracle, it just wasn't happening. Funny you should mention rocks, he cracked his knuckles, because I'm about to put you under one. Adam's forehead slammed against his with vigor. Not if I get you first. Emily tried to interpose herself between them, bless her. Wait. Quiet, pipsqueak, Adam brushed her aside. So how we doing this? Naruto set his jaw and planted his feet. Loser has to do anything the winner says. Adam's grin told him he'd blundered. Works for me. If I win, you're cleaning the toilets for the next 3 months. Was that it? Doesn't sound so bad. With your tongue. His right eye twitched. You're just a special class of ass, aren't ya? And if I win? Adam sputtered. You won't, pal. He pressed him. But if I do? Dude, you're a newborn angel. Doesn't matter how many wings ya go, you're probably weak as shit. Was he? He didn't feel weak right now. If anything he felt powerful, stronger than he'd ever been. Then why are you so afraid to fight me? I ain't. Sarah heaved a sigh that shook her slim shoulders. Humor him, Adam. The sooner we get this nonsense over with, the better. Yeah, sure, whatever. Fine. The so-called angel rounded on him, teeth bared. If I lose then, what, you want me to peg you or something? Naruto absolutely gagged as his face blazed red. For a moment he could have sworn every other anger in the room did the same. Not a chance. He slammed his arms together in the distinctive shape of an X at him. Not in a million years. What, then? Adam clicked his tongue and smirked. Too afraid to think of something. He racked his brain for ideas. One came to him. When you lose. If I lose and that's a big if. You have to be nice. Adam gagged. And you give me charge of these subordinates of yours. He jerked a thumb back at Lute, who squawked indignantly. They're clearly in need of a proper leader. Not some overgrown brat like you. Adam looked like he'd asked him to cut off his arm. Hand over my exorcists to you. Not a chance. Pick something else. He quirked a brow at him. Chicken. Hey, don't you dare. When Naruto flapped his arms and made poultry noises. Why you little, you're going down. A shit-eating grin split his face. Something burned bright in him. It almost felt like pride mingled with wrath. We'll see about that. Sarah thrust herself between them with the look of a woman who wanted to strangle them both. Do the two of you agree to these terms? Yup, sure. Very well, this way. With a long-suffering sigh, she led them outside to a secluded cloudbank away from the promenade and prying eyes. At a glance, it didn't seem like anything to write home about, just a cushion of surprisingly solid clouds nestled beneath the warm rays of the sun. Upon closer inspection he realized there was a weight to this place, a gravity that he couldn't quite define. Adam paraded about, grinning like he owned the damn place, naturally. Nice. Good choice, Sarah. I missed my old stomping grounds. An ember of anger sparked in him. Had this happened before? Had other souls challenge Adam before? Had. Victory goes to whomever forces the other to yield. Sarah's voice cut through his thoughts like a burning sword. She looked between them, eyes blazing. Emily and I will be watching the both of you. Any attempt to do so kill will result in immediate disqualification. Are we clear? Naruto nodded. Crystal. Adam waved her on. You want a weapon, weakling? Bastard. Nah, I've got my own. Hopefully. He wasn't sure if he could conjure his staff here. Adam conjured a strange golden weapon that seemed to be a cross between a guitar and a battleaxe. One way to find out. Emily touched his hand, stalling him. Naruto, Please. She gazed up at him with her bright, soulful eyes. You don't have to this right now. It's only your first day of heaven. I don't want to see you get hurt. He bridled at the insinuation. Danger. She thought he was in danger. Nonsense. He was the danger. But that darn pout of hers so innocently pure weakened his resolve once more. Maybe he'd overstepped. He wasn't feeling entirely himself at the moment. It was more than righteous fury spurring him on, but the loss of Kurama and his own death were gnawing at him, leaving him feeling hollow inside. Maybe a bit of rest would do him some good. They could always settle this in the morning if he still felt the same. He took a breath, shook his head, and made to walk away. Maybe you've got a point. Emily chirruped, simultaneously surprised and delighted. I do. You do. We don't have to do this right now, Adam. He looked to the scowling angel. Let's wait until morning. Sarah seemed oddly pleased with the choice, because she actually smiled and granted him a nod. That sounds acceptable. There's no need to fight at this very moment. Perhaps we should let cooler heads prevail. Lute scoffed. Naruto turned his back on her and paid her all the attention she was due, which was to say none. Right up until Adam got the last word in with a sneer. Backing down now, are we? Looks like you're the one who's all bark and no bite. I'd bet my halo you died a coward's death, didn't you? He did not just say that. The entirety of heaven momentarily dimmed as Naruto froze in midstep. Sarah, Emily, and even Lute looked up, eyes wide, terribly startled by the display. He didn't see their reactions, his attention was decidedly elsewhere. A muscle jumped in his jaw, pounding alongside a throbbing vein in his temple as his wings howled back into existence behind his back. All the anger he'd struggled to contain came roaring back in a red tide that swallowed all thought, all sense, all sanity. He couldn't see his own eyes, it just wasn't possible, but here in this moment, they blazed a bright holy gold as he craned his neck back to regard the arrogant angel with a scowl. 4 words parted his lips. What did you say? Adam scoffed and made a show of inspecting his weapon. Ha, you dumb and dead. I said you're a little chicken shit. Sarah hissed. Adam, for once in your life, be quiet. What? It's not an insult if it's true. His head snapped to the side as clenched knuckles barreled into his face at light speed. It was a very good punch Naruto felt. Powerful, poised, and perfect. His chakra-filled fist smashed into that bastard's helmet with a dull crunch, and sent the arrogant angel tumbling down to the clouds. The moment Adam fell, he lunged at him, tackled him, and pinned him there. So began the barrage. 1 punch, 2 punch, 3 punch, 4 punches followed, rapid strikes hammering into the older angel's gut. He rather liked the sounds he made, so he kept swinging, beating him down bit by brutal bit. Someone was shouting behind him, but he never knew who, couldn't hear anything over the roaring in his ears. He linked both hands over his head and brought them crashing down on Adam's instead. In hindsight, it was too much to hope that would knock him out. Should have known better. Arrogant blowhard though he was sturdy as they came. With a snarl, Adam flared his wings and bucked, hurling him away, shattering the red haze in his mind. You think you're hot shit, don't you? Not really. He shrugged a shoulder. Just better than you. It was the wrong thing to say. Adam lunged at him, swinging for the fences. He gave ground with a frown and let the axe sweep over him, past him, aside from him. Even then his steps felt stilted. Awkward. He wasn't used to the weight of these wings on his back. They threw off his balance, his coordination. He dodged Adam easily enough, but he couldn't get a beat on him. His angelic body was stronger, but he couldn't move the way he wanted. Stranger still, he had a hell of a time trying to summon his staff to his hand. And then he misstepped. Adam took full advantage to slash at his face. Game over, rookie. His entire body tensed, and all 10 of his wings swung as one to block the blow, stopping it cold. Naruto blinked. Adam balked. What the shit? Emily tilted her head just so. He can do that. I can do that. Naruto echoed her sentiment in full-throated disbelief. Adam hauled back and swung, only to find himself forestalled once more by the heavenly raiment. Here at last, he glimpsed a flicker of fear in the man's cracked mask. Relief was sweet, it was heady, and it lent him a strength he never knew he had. I can use these as weapons. A grin split his face. Well, alright, then. Adam swore. Crap. A golden wing smacked the first man upside the head, even as a second swept his legs, opening him up to a third to strike him in the gut, folding him clean in half across the feathered appendage. That's right. These are extensions of my body. They respond to my muscles, to my will. Which means I can probably. He deflected Adam with one wing, battered him back with another and poured chakra through 3 more to slash like a blade. The result spoke for itself. He struck true, tearing into his foe's chest, slashing through his so-called defenses as though they weren't even there. Golden blood flew through the air to splash across his cheek. Huh, so that's what our blood looks like now. Can't say I approve. I prefer mine to run red. Adam dropped to a knee and clutched at his wound, snarling into the clouds. Naruto looked to Sarah. We good. I think he's done. Never. The first man righted himself with a snarl. I didn't hear no bell, bastard. Well, alright. He shrugged a shoulder. If you say so. He didn't give him a chance to catch his breath and lunged in, wings propelling him forward at speed. Unprepared for the sudden burst, Adam couldn't quite escape in time. He caught him by the face, fingers biting down into his helm, only for his foe to flare his wings and fly free. Not so his mask. Unable to escape with its master, it was left behind, dangling from his hand. Huh. He gave it a shake and squinted at the angel's face. So that's what you look like without this. Too edgy. He flung it down at his feet. Pick it up. Much to his surprise, Adam didn't, which gave him a prime view of the rage twisting his face. You think you're better than me? He slashed his axe forward in an arc of holy light, trying to cut him in half. That your tough shit, huh? Not really. No. He batted the blast aside into the sky and righted himself, wings flaring behind him. But you're all brute force. You're lacking so many things, ya know. He darted in and gave himself over to his new body, moving on instinct. A blistering roundhouse. You lack discipline. Palm thrust. Control. Gut punch. And worst. Discombobulate. He slammed both hands down on Adam's ears, leaving him reeling. You're sloppy. He finished with a scowl as the angel slumped down before him, wasted and gasping for air. Anyone can see it. When was the last time you actually trained? That's enough. Sarah raised a hand. Adam yields. No. Much to his annoyance, said angel punched the clouds and wobbled his way upright, swaying drunkenly on his feet. I ain't done. Not yet. A small flick of sympathy kicked at Naruto's heart. Yes, you are. Adam lunged at him like a feral dog, teeth bared. 0.0.0.0. This wasn't happening. He was Adam, the original man. Winning was what he did. Every day, he didn't lose. But he was losing. Here and now, he found himself being beaten, battered, butchered within an inch of his life. Naruto caught his weapon in his left hand and crushed it in his fist. Not so the punch that followed. He took that one like champ. He'd give him that. His eyes widened in momentary surprise as his head snapped to the side, right until he turned his face in against the fist, uncaring of the clenched knuckles currently denting his cheek. His smile returned tenfold. Something curdled deep within Adam's soul. He'd never felt the like before. Was this fear? All the work for a drop of blood? Naruto wiped a thin bead of golden ichor from his lips with one hand, and gripped his wrist with the other, anchoring him in place. My turn now. It was at this moment that he knew. I fucked up. Aura. Clenched knuckles barreled into his jaw with a triumphant shout. Not just fists this time around, but those damn wings as well. Sarah's new seraphim was using them like extra limbs now, beating the tar out of him. There was no getting past them. He made the mistake of trying and soon learned his lesson. They were hard as steel and swift as lightning. How could someone move that fast with 10 wings? It didn't make any sense. He tried to fight back, only to find himself battered left and right, up, down, and center. It never stopped. It just kept coming. Ordinarily he would have made a joke about that, but he couldn't see straight, couldn't think, for all the pain, and oh god, I thought make it stop. An awful thought occurred to him, just then, as he hurtled through the air. I'm not the bad guy here, am I? Every fiber of his being bridled at the very idea of it all, the stinking gall. No way. I'm Adam, the first man. There's no way. And then, quite suddenly, he had his answer. 0.0.0.0. The final blow came not with a whisper, but a bang. Naruto blocked another savage attack from Adam, met him halfway Rasengan in hand, and smashed his signature technique down into the angel's chest. The result was a bit, well, overkill, if he was being honest. He'd taken his chakra into account, really he had, but in his haste to finish the fight, he'd forgotten about his newfound angelic power and the blessings that came with it. What followed was a snarling helix of light that tore into the first man's torso, eviscerated his body in a way he hadn't at all intended, and left him reeling back. As such. You rat bastard. Adam gurgled once, staggered forward, tried to grab him, and failed. His eyes rolled back in his head and he collapsed like a house of cards at his feet. Golden blood oozed from his wounds to pool upon the clouds, staining them an ugly shade of yellow. Third time was the charm, as they say. His adversary did not rise again. Come to think of it, he didn't seem to be moving at all. Naruto winced a little, despite himself. Oops. A moment of silence followed. And then. Luke screamed. Will he live? I suppose that depends on the definition of the word. Must you be so flippant? This is hardly the time for jokes, Naruto. Said Blonde clasped both hands behind his head. Would you believe me if I said I wasn't joking? He could feel Sarah's glare searing between his shoulders and summarily ignored it, alongside the tiny twinge of guilt he felt. Against all odds, Adam wasn't dead. Horribly wounded, seriously scarred, mostly maimed and probably wishing he was dead, mind you, but alive. They'd left the first man sprawled out on a cot in the infirmary. Heaven actually had one who knew, under a ray of heavenly light, and left him there to recover. He'd even deigned to heal him out of pity to keep him from dying outright. In theory, he should be fine, but the bastard wouldn't wake up from his coma. In truth, he wasn't sure if Adam was having some existential crisis, just being stubborn, or if some other factor was at play here. He suspected the former. Regardless, he unlikely to recover anytime soon, which brought them to their dilemma, as it were. Suffering a defeat like that changes you. Sarah clasped both hands behind her back and turned away from the window to face him fully. His body may have recovered, but his mind. Yeah, I get it. He ran a hand through his glowing hair. I messed up. That's on me. Indeed it is, she huffed. Do be careful next time, for Emily's sake, if not your own. She still hasn't stopped singing your praises, you know. She was trying to change the subject, and just this once, he let her. She clearly wasn't a fan of Adam, and who was? But if she wanted to extend the proverbial olive branch, then far be it from him to stop her. Ya know, I don't think I've ever met anyone so pure. Sarah preened a little, unable to hide her smile. Indeed, she is the very embodiment of joy. Is she your daughter or your sister? I can't tell. Either way, you seem really fond her. Sarah's dark face flushed. She's family to me. Nothing else matters. All right, he held up his hands. Evasive answer. I won't cry. Adam mumbled something in his sleep. Naruto twitched. I gotta ask though, he jabbed a thumb over his shoulder, why show this jerk that much favoritism? Is he that big of a deal? She stood a little straighter under his gaze. He was the very first soul to ascend. It was the will of heaven. Don't give me that holier than thou crap. How did someone like him even get up here? You must know. Silence reigned supreme. You're kidding me. He balked at her, made incredulous by her muteness. I thought this guy, a hand waved to Adam's prone form, must have done something special to land a gig all the way up here, but you don't even know, do you? ... I do not. The high seraphim gripped her wrist and looked away, glowing eyes nervously flicking to the right in an attempt to evade his gaze. Far be it from me to question the will of heaven. His brow furrowed. He'd never been a fan of blind obeisance or dogmatic dogma even when he was alive. Really? Because I'm thinking we should be questioning everything. You mustn't. He didn't miss the sudden flash of panic as she pivoted back his way. Lute is already beside herself. The exorcists are demanding answers. Another question he just had to ask. Why are they even called that? Enough. Her wings flared and her halo brightened as she burst into the air, prompting a similar reaction from him. I understand your dislike of Adam. In that, I sympathize with you. He has few friends here, I will admit. But you cannot simply question everything here without consequence, any more than you can strike someone down for opposing you. Was that what she thought he'd done? That his actions yesterday had been deliberate? How wrong she was. Sarah, his smile sharpened, if I meant to kill anyone here, I already would have. The ethereal glow around her wings brightened and he mirrored her. For a moment, all of heaven seemed to hold its breath. Much to his surprise, Sarah backed down first. We mustn't fight amongst ourselves. She let her wings droop, the glow around her fading to a mere flicker of its former self as she returned to the ground. We're on the same side here, surely you can see that. Were they? He shook his head. All I'm seeing here is a whole lot of confusion. Lucky for you, I'm one of the good guys. She had to know. She wanted to know. She absolutely needed to know. What in the Allfather's name was he? The question nagged at Sarah for the rest of the day. It burned in her thoughts, churned at her conflicted soul, tore at her routine until it was all she could think of. It dominated her every waking moment. Paperwork was pointless, food and drink tasted like ash in her mouth, and her concentration. There could be no denying it. She just couldn't focus. Not like this. In all fairness, she would be the first to admit that this new seraphim, assuming he truly was one, had surpassed her initial expectations. It was a rare thing indeed for an mortal soul to become an angel, rarer still for one to ascend to seraphim, but to be reborn in heaven as one. That was nigh unheard of. Yet here he was. In less than a day, he'd already upset the natural order. Not even he had accomplished such. Mumbling under her breath, she took her thumb between her teeth and bit it softly, an old habit she'd had since she was but a fledgling, one she didn't dare show in public. What to do with him? What to do? Emily was quite fond of him, and admittedly so was she in a sense, but the questions. Questions. Not even a week in heaven and already he was beginning to poke and prod at the delicate piece here, to realize nothing was as it seemed. If he found a loose thread he'd undoubtedly tug at it in the whole. He rather reminded her of young Lucy back in the old days. Full of life and light and love, but more than willing to throw down when pressed. She'd seen his power firsthand, a soul so powerful it made heaven itself dim momentarily, and that, it frightened her. From that fear anxiety was born, and with it, kindling an old ember of worry she'd not experienced in eons. He might be beyond her. Dare she say an archangel? Not even Michael and the others had ever thrashed at him so handily as Naruto had. But by that very logic he deserved to be here. She'd read his list of deeds, the same list every soul had when they came to heaven, and found herself flummoxed for it. His accomplishments were long and lengthy. Frankly, his selfless career quite possibly made him one of, if not the most selfless soul she had ever met. And she was centuries old. If only he wouldn't question everything. Sweet father, what if he fell? Sarah could see it now. If a being of his level fell from the heavens, why, hell wouldn't simply revolt, it would rise. He would lead a legion to their doorstep, and no, she mustn't think of that. That way lay madness and paranoia. She refused to go down that road again. He must remain in heaven at all costs. But how to do that? How to assuage his questions? How to distract him? How? Sarah. She looked up, startled to find the door open. She'd not heard it, so distracted was she. And there, standing within the archway, looking ever so concerned. Emily. Have you seen Naruto? I haven't been able to find him all day. And just like that, the answer fell into Sarah's lap. 0.0.0.0. Loot was lurking in the corridor. Naruto sensed the exorcist's seething presence long before he saw her. Her soul was a wild, tangled knot of conflicting emotions, a tightly wound spring ready to snap, preferably at him. He could have sensed her miles away with ease. He wasn't surprised to find her lurking nearby. He would have done the same had she hurt one of his friends. Still didn't make it any less annoying though. Kurama would have said something witty, just no. He missed him. Shaking his head, he readied himself and rounded the bend. Several things happened at once. First and foremost, the ambush. Die. He snatched the exorcist's angelic spear by the shaft as it jabbed toward his face, raised it high and snapped it over his knee, drawing a gasp from his would-be killer as they found themselves clutching a useless stick. Belatedly he got a good look at Luke then, or rather, what she was wearing. She donned a strange horned helm of some sort, the better to conceal her identity from prying eyes. Clever, but utterly ineffective. He knew it was her. Her emotions were an open book to him. Really? He casually tossed the business end of her broken spear over his shoulder. You actually thought this would work. Credit where it was due. Luke wasn't the sort to give up easily. She recovered and, rather than retreat in the face of adversity, committed fully. She flung the ruined shaft of her spear at him. A distraction. He smacked it aside with one wing, yet in that moment she crossed the distance between them and threw a series of wild punches his way. Or perhaps she was trying to strangle him. Claw his eyes out. Either way, his opinion of her remained very much the same. Slow, sloppy, sad. He intercepted one fist with an open palm, and retaliated in kind with a vicious roundhouse, driving clenched knuckles into her right eye. His attacker reeled. From there he drove a knee into her stomach to wind her, wrenched her arm down behind her back and forced her to the ground. His free hand gripped her helmet, tore it aside, seized her by the hair and kept her there, pressing her face into pristine white marble. She struggled fruitlessly to no avail. He held fast until she tuckered herself out. Only then did he deign to speak. Are ya done? Luke wrenched her head back to glare at him. Here at last, he finally got a good look at her pale face, the stubborn set of her lips, her narrow golden eyes, one of which was already beginning to bruise. Every fiber of her being radiated defiance, and he knew that if he were to let her go here and now, he'd gain an implacable enemy for life. On the other hand, do it, then, she snarled at him, tears gleaming in her good eye. Kill me, just like you killed him. Was she that out of the loop? He scoffed. Adam's not dead, you dolt. All the fight drained out of her. He's not. Go have a look after this if you like. He shrugged one shoulder, but made no move to release her. I wasn't trying to kill him, ya know. Now it was her turn to scoff. Bullshit. Loot. I mean it. Horseshit. Listen, you little. He leaned down until their foreheads touched, and looked her square in the eye. You seem confused about a few things, so I'll tell you what I told Sarah. If I meant to kill your precious boyfriend, his eyes glowed gold, the very air warping around them, he would be dead already. He's not my. She tried to speak further and irritated, he clamped a hand round her mouth. She promptly bit him for it. Of course she did. Seriously, what are you, 7? He rolled his eyes and stared her down. No, never mind that. You think a Rasengan is scary. You've no idea. Have you ever seen what a Rasenshuriken does to the body? She glared at him and refused to respond until his fingers bit into her cheeks, drawing a pained gasp from her. You haven't, have you? He gave her a good shake for emphasis. Pray that you never do. Only then did take his hand from her mouth and release her. Luke didn't so much rise as she did spring backward in her haste to get away from him. Please don't attack me again, he side-eyed her when it looked like she might summon another weapon. Her brow furrowed. You really weren't trying to kill him, were you? No. Will he live? He shrugged a shoulder. Most likely. She clicked her tongue and looked aside with a snarl. Then I'm sorry. Luke most assuredly wasn't. Not entirely, but it was better than nothing, frankly. Are you? He didn't budge, even when she glared at him. You could be less of a bitch about it. You. Her wings bridled for a moment, then drooped as she tucked them back in behind her. Fine. You're right. I am. Wait, why was he questioning this? She'd leave him be at this rate. I mean, yes. He coughed into a fist. I am. And don't you forget it. Luke looked at him askance, still radiating quiet contempt. Don't expect me to get down on my knees for you, though. Why would I even want that? A thought occurred to him then, as he stared her down. Injuries aside, she looked much the same as she always did, but now that he looked, there was something about her halo and wings that seemed different since he'd last seen her. Why is your halo black, anyway? It seems darker than before. Luke blinked. She blinked hard. By the father, you really are new, aren't you? He flared his wings in response. Thought that much was obvious. She palmed her face with a scowl. I can't believe you're in charge of us. I can't tell if the Almighty is laughing at me or not. You should know, Adam had certain responsibilities, duties you'll be expected to fulfill until he recovers. He didn't much like the sound of that. What kind of duties? I could tell you. She considered him for a long moment with a bitter smile, only to shake her head. But I think it'll be more painful for you to find out. She stomped away with a huff, leaving him scratching his head in exasperation. Her smile said otherwise. Naruto knew it at a glance. She'd been watching him for some time now. Heat crept up the back of his neck all over again. It made a man feel proper embossed, you know. Don't worry, it's a problem we all have at first. Even Sarah wasn't born with the knowledge of flight. She settled in beside him with a happy chirrup. She had to learn from the seraphim before her, just as she learned from the seraphim before her. Adam certainly didn't come into heaven knowing half of what he does now. Hey, that, at least, made him feel better. You won't try to kill like that again, will you? Her question was born not from anger or concern, but simple innocence. It hurt. He winced. I didn't mean to hurt him that badly. She blinked up at him, pure as the driven snow. You overestimated him. More like I underestimated myself. I see. Also, that was a very pretty light show earlier. He sputtered and flushed, smiling at her simple praise. Thanks. But if you'd like flying lessons, her hands closed around his, shy and tentative. I can teach you how to fly, if you like. His face softened a little. He just couldn't help it when faced with someone so eager. I'd like that, very much. Emily chirruped happily. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I promise I won't let you down. A look of pure and utter joy flashed across the smaller seraphim's face as she squealed happily and hopped in place. He couldn't quite explain what came over him in that moment. They were still holding hands. Perhaps that was it. Because for a singular blinding second, her joy was his joy. More than that, they were connected. It was too much. Far too much. Couldn't resist. Emily used smile. It's super effective. Critical hit. Naruto fainted. Was he dreaming? Because this felt like a dream. There was just one problem with said dream. Adam couldn't wake up. Oh, he wanted to, make no mistake, but he couldn't. Instead he found himself floating on his back staring up at an empty white void. Couldn't do much more beyond that. Couldn't blink, couldn't move, couldn't even flex his wings. He could only stare and breathe. Angels usually didn't need to do the last one in heaven, but for some reason it felt like he had to. Weird ow. A jolt of pain racked his soul out of the blue, drawing a yelp from him. And with it came an all too familiar voice, echoing high above. Repent. Was that? It was. Oh ho 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 shit on a stick. He knew that voice. Adam tried to smile. Instead grimace wrought his face. Hey, big guy. Long time no see. How's the vacation? A fresh paroxysm of agony shook his soul from head to toe, rendering the last word a reedy cry. Repent. Gah. He tried to look away, but it was no use, his soul wouldn't stop convulsing. What the shit was that for? Repent. For what? You know well the reason. Adam had an inkling, and it pissed him off. What, you want me to say sorry to that whiskered bastard? Just thinking of it pissed him off. Hell, no, I didn't do anything wrong. That misguided belief is why you have fallen so far. Now repent. Dozens of fire ants burned through his veins. Not a chance. Repent. He gnashed his teeth, writing out another spasm. Stop. Just stop, all right. Just like that, his tormentor paused. You gave your word, did you not? I didn't think that blonde bastard would actually win, okay. So you had no intention of honoring your promise. He winced. Well, when you put it like that. Such is why you must repent, Adam. Year. The pain ceased, leaving the first man wasted and gasping for air. Why are you doing this? Because my boy, you have become a bully since last we spoke. Bullies need to know they can be punished, too. Now, repent. An almighty shadow fell over him, their face burning so bright that Adam couldn't bring himself to look them in the eye. His own bulged anyway as a glowing hand settled atop his forehead. Almost immediately, he felt an all too familiar pressure squeeze against his temples, like an iron vice clamping down against his skull. The agony that followed was unlikely any other, it broke through his defenses as though they weren't even there. Pain didn't even begin to describe what followed. Now, just hold on. Wait a second. Can't we talk ABAAAAAAAAAAARGH? His pain shrieks of torment echoed into the void. A single word overtook them. Just the one. Repent. 0.0.0.0. 1 month passed. 4 weeks. 28 days. Naruto meticulously kept track of each one, if only because it helped him stay sane. Among other things. Flight was a novel thing with wings, but as with all things, he resolved to master it. And he had, given time. Emily had been an absolute godsend in that regard. Adam's so-called exorcists, not so much. Even now, a month after the fact, Lute and most of the other girls still bridled at the notion of working under him, even more so as it became abundantly clear that Adam wouldn't wake up. They were keeping something from him, he just knew it, but whatever it was, they'd evidently been sworn to silence. That, or Lute was just being a colossal bitch about it. Meh, probably the latter. Settling into the afterlife when you were, well, dead, was easier than it sounded. At times he almost found himself forgetting he'd died at all, only to catch sight of himself in the mirror or nearby building, and then he'd be right back at square one again. He still found himself balking sometimes at it. Everyone thinks they're immortal, until they aren't. Speaking of immortal and mortal beings, he could sense the former glaring his way now. That'll be all for today, ladies. He dismissed them with an absent wave. No more drills. Get some rest. A few nodded. 1 or 2 even bowed. The rest scoffed or flipped him the bird as they left. He couldn't particularly bring himself to care, not after he'd driven them to the point of exhaustion. Adam had been sloppy in his training. No surprise, there. The man was a pig and he'd drilled some awful habits and mannerisms into these girls, much of which he found himself forced to undo. If that meant breaking down these so-called exorcists, and rebuilding them from the bottom up, then so be it. Turning his back on them, he considered the clouds and the sun above. Heaven had so many things he didn't understand. The Lute and her exorcists were but one small facet of the greater whole. Sure, this place was nice, the buildings looked great and all, but it just felt so, beyond him, at times. Some of these souls even had things called cell phones. What the heck was a cell phones? Bah, so confusing. How was a man to make sense of it all? Irritated by his thoughts, he flared his wings and burst into the sky. Flying was still difficult, if he was entirely honest with himself, but at least he needn't fear crashing anymore. It's just a matter of instinct. Emily's innocent giggle filled his mind with a memory. Don't worry, you'll figure it out sooner or later. His face burned. He soared higher to free himself from such thoughts. But the higher he went, the more those human cares fell away. He liked this place. Up here it was calm, peaceful. Downright soothing really. Maybe it wasn't so bad being dead after all. Like hell it wasn't. Naruto recoiled from that foreign thought and snapped his wings out, cutting his ascent short. He shook his head violently, vaguely aware of a distant ringing in his ears. Where had that come from? Was this place messing with his mind? Had to be. The higher he went, the worse it became, so much so that he found himself turning away from the upper levels of heaven and gliding back the way he'd come. He needed to get some air, proper air. Real air, not whatever this was. Descending, he plonked down upon one of the lower clouds. And with it, he felt his emotions return. This close to the pearly gates, that surreal calm seemed nothing more than a distant memory, or a bad dream. Except it wasn't. Now, was it? He knew what he'd experienced. He'd sensed something up there. Something strong. Something powerful enough to affect even his emotions. What in blazes was hiding all the way up there, and why did the thought make him shiver? Kurama would know the answer. He always knew these things. His absence pained him. Sprawling out amidst the clouds, he sighed, draping an arm over his eyes. It wasn't long before a shadow fell over him. Did you crash again? Naruto moved his arm and creaked an eye open. Sneaky little angel, he hadn't heard her coming. Didn't crash, he muttered under his breath. Just thinking. Emily leaned closer, hands on her knees as she regarded him intently. What about? Recognizing the unspoken inquiry for what it was, he sat up and scooted over, making way for her, idly rubbing his head. She noticed at once. Bless her simple soul. You're not feeling well, are you? What's wrong? Head hurts, he grunted. Fine. His fellow seraphim perked up. I can help. Could she, now? He doubted that, but was willing to humor her. He arched an eyebrow. Unless you're a healer, I very much doubt. Emily patted her knees with both hands and his argument died an ugly death in his throat. Just come here. She waved him down eagerly, less of a command, and more of a plea. Let me help. He dithered. Please. U.R.K. Reluctantly, he scooted closer and lowered his head, letting her tentatively guide him into her lap until he was resting the back of his head against her thighs. It felt nice. Surprisingly soft. He couldn't remember the last time he'd done something like this. Emily laid a dusky hand upon his forehead, light as a feather's brush. Close your eyes. Why not? He complied on a whim and did as she asked, only because she asked. Had it been a command, he would have refused her on principle. What was that noise? He could clearly hear something, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Music. No, wait, he told a lie. Not quite music, but neither could he call it words either. It was like something trapped somewhere between the two, like a tale as old as time, or a song old as rhyme. A wordless tune that settled over his soul like a fine shroud, lulling him to sleep. What was the word for that? Ah, he had it now. Lullaby. This was a lullaby. It brought him, dare he say, peace. Not that awful artificial feeling he'd experienced when trying to reach the upper levels of heaven, but proper peace. He felt a hand run through his hair, gently teasing out the knots there, stroking his scalp with delicate ease and care. He flushed, suddenly and incredibly aware of the intimate position he was in, yet his eyes were drooping all the same. In no time at all, found himself drifting off. Do not worry. A voice spoke to him in that moment, unseen, unknowable, and unfathomable. Everything will be all right. Soon you will see. You were brought here for a reason. You'll save them all, both above and below. Naruto sat up with a jolt, but the voice was gone, taking his migraine with it. Phew. Emily heaved a sigh and wiped a bead of sweat from her brow, utterly unaware of what he'd just experienced. That always takes a lot out of me. Her wings drooped a little as he looked on. Did you like it? I hope that helped. He found himself stricken into gobsmacked silence. Emily kept staring, spurring him into action. Did you hear a voice, just now? Sorry. She seemed to shrink in on herself, misunderstanding him. I know, I'm not very good. Not good. He seized her hands in his and yanked them close. If that's what you call bad, then your best must be out of this world. ... Why was her face so red? There's no need to flatter me. She sputtered out. Sarah sings better than I and. Didn't ask about her. He cut her off with a huff. In this moment his mind didn't even conceive of the prudish older angel or anything about her. I was talking about you. Sarah. Sarah who? Sarah was nobody. Every fiber of his being remained focused upon the innocent and growing increasingly red angel sitting before him. Me. Emily squeaked and looked away, her gaze flitted this way and that, eyes unable to meet his for some reason. I'm flattered, really. By the log, she was just so small. Or perhaps he was simply too tall in this form. Regardless, whenever he found himself looking at her these days, he found himself stricken by a strong urge to keep her safe, to shield her at all costs. It was foolish, he knew. She didn't need his condescension, she wasn't a child to protect. He knew she'd be angry if he said so. She might not look it, but she was older than him after all. A thought occurred to him suddenly, striking out of the blue. Naruto pounced on it. Do you ever leave heaven? No. She blinked, flush fading for a moment. Why would we? We already have everything we need here. On that, he disagreed. This, heaven, didn't have what he needed. It might never, for that matter. Well, that just sounds silly, doesn't it? He said. Angels should be out saving people, not staying cooped up in here. Liar. As far as excuses went, it was a poor one. He just wanted out, only for a little while. Just enough to clear his head, you know. And yet Emily considered it. I suppose you have a point. She touched a finger to her chin. I've never thought about it that way before. Maybe you could ask Sarah. Why not? He needed to talk to her anyway. Sure. Maybe I can show you around where I grew up. Assuming it still existed. There was no way of telling if this was his afterlife, after all. Nevertheless, his words had Emily perking up. Really? You promise? He puffed out his chest. I never go back on my word, you know. The little seraphim grinned at that, and absolutely froze. Emily. He poked her cheek. Emmy. You good. Abruptly, she moved. Emily made happy Emily noises and tackled him with a squeal. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That sounds great. I can't wait. A bell chimed somewhere high above, unseen somewhere in the clouds, cutting off her happy exclamations, causing her to look up. Oh, that's for me. She flared her wings and took flight, releasing him. I'll see you later. Let me know how the talk with Sarah goes. He couldn't help but wave her way. She was just too pure for her own good. I will. See you around. Emily paused suddenly, dithered for a moment, seemed to consider something. Without warning, she darted back, quick as a sparrow in flight. Moi. In that instant he comprehended several things at once. Warm. Soft. Light as a feather's touch and innocence's first blush, lingering against his cheek, her face so close to his, cheeks dusted with pink. Thank you, Emily whispered to his ears and his ears alone, for the compliment. He barely had time to comprehend it, then she was gone, whisking away over the clouds. He touched a hand to his cheek. Huh. Are you that easily led? He looked back over his shoulder, nonplussed to find a certain voyeur perched on a nearby cloud. Of course she was watching him. What you want, Loot? He pivoted to face her with a scowl. To see me suffer. Is that it? Is that what you people do for fun up here? In response, Loot began to remove her shirt. When he was alive, he might panicked. Even now, he felt a fierce flare of surprise. But it was muted, distant. What the hell are you doing? Having fun. He didn't miss the spiteful sparkle in her eyes. Cut the crap. He slashed a hand out before she could finish. There are other ways to do that. Really? We're not prudes up here. He growled and she grinned in return. Fine. I was only joking anyway. Her head tilted suddenly, her smile gaining a vicious edge. Have you solved the little mystery I gave you, yet? He hadn't, and they both knew that for a fact. I'm close. Then let me pull the wool off your eyes, Captain. She leaned in and whispered into his ear. Ever heard of Extermination Day? His eyes widened. What's that? Luke told him. Extermination Day. Extermination Day. Naruto stumbled through the empty halls, words ringing in his head like a bell as he staggered along. He could still hear them. Over and over. Louder and louder. Every word, every soul, every syllable etched into his head with painstakingly clarity, a haunting tale he'd never be able to forget. The very theory of Extermination Day sounded terrible enough on paper, but the explanation that followed the words Luke told him proved so much worse. Even now they haunted him. Once a year, exorcists angels, descending to hell and killing every soul in sight. A full 24 hours of pain and torture and torment and death. Senseless slaughter, sickening savagery, spiteful slaying. He wasn't satisfied with just her word, of course. People lied all the time. Even angels. For all he knew, heaven had a way of getting past his negative emotion sensing or something. This place was already affecting him in some ways, who knew what else it might do. And so he had demanded more questions of her, until he knew everything, not just the yearly exterminations, but Adam's part in them, and the one who ordered it all. In hindsight, he really shouldn't have pried. Ignorance was bliss, something he should have clung to. It wasn't possible anymore, because now he knew the truth, and the truth had set him free. The worst part about it all, Luke was telling the truth. At the end of the day, Adam's second in command genuinely believed she was doing good by committing genocide. In her twisted soul she thought this was her duty, that all those who dwelt below heaven deserved to die. Unacceptable. Oh, he knew Luke was trying to play him in other ways, make no mistake. Telling him this wasn't just for the sole purpose of inflicting pain, she probably sought to spur him into action, egging him on in the hope that he would fly off the handle again and do something foolish. Oh, yes, he knew. But it didn't change the facts. Luke's voice taunted him even now. The next extermination is in 6 months. Can you live with that knowledge? She was right. He couldn't. Unacceptable. He'd been on the warpath ever since. The first step was Luke herself. He knocked that smug bitch out, tied her down, and locked her up. The second step came in the form of the exorcists. It took less than an hour to gather all of Adam's followers together under the pretense of a meeting. From there, he asked them what they thought of Extermination Day. Their answers had proven enlightening. Of the 100 exorcists currently on active duty, only 4 girls expressed anything less than complete and utter devotion to Adam's cause. The rest gleefully looked forward to the next E-Day, as they called it. Some were even keen on moving up the timetable to twice a year at that. 4 voices of dissent, amongst 100. Those 4, he excused, idly resolving to ask their names at a later date. As to the rest, diplomacy failed. He'd be lying if he said he wasn't disappointed in them, or himself, for what he did next. In the end, he did what he did best. He beat his enemies half to death, gave them a stern talking to and strung them in the square for all of heaven to see until they changed their minds. Broken bones, mangled muscles, warped wings, you name it, he did it. They wouldn't recover for months, if not longer. Which gave him more time to plan his next move. The third step proved a bit more cowardly on his part, in that it involved him staunchly and absolutely avoiding Emily until he got this settled and sorted. He didn't think he could face her as he was now. Hopefully she wasn't a part of this. She couldn't be, right? She mustn't be. But if she was. No, don't think about that. As for the fourth and final step, that awaited him here and now. His legs had carried him to his final destination. Good. To his credit, Naruto didn't hesitate for long. A quick breath to marshal his anger. Nothing more. All right. Steeling himself, he reared back, raised his right leg and his shoe met door with an awful crunch. The latter yielded. Loudly. Sarah. The head seraphim jolted to her feet from behind her desk with a stricken look on her face, gasping as the door to her office crashed open, all but tearing free from its hinges. He knew how he must appear to her. Face carved from stone, all traces of light and levity gone, concealed behind a stern mask of anger. Gone was his once sunny smile. In its place stood a stern scowl bordering on an outright sneer. His once blue eyes burned a molten shade of gold, warping the very air around him. Was she angry at him? Was she afraid? Was she going to try and talk him around? Too bad. He already knew his answer. Tough. Naruto. Sarah forced a smile to her face, when in truth, he could see she very much wanted to fly away. You've been busy, I see. To what do I owe the pleasure of your company? Funny you should mention that. He stalked forward and planted a hand on her desk. I have been busy. Because little birdie just told me about a fascinating holiday we have up here. Her shoulders drooped a little. And what holiday is that? Extermination Day. Sarah's smile died an ugly death as her wings slammed down behind her. Not good. As he looked on, she drew herself upright, looming large over him, silvery eyes blazing into his gold. Naruto lifted his chin and bristled in return, ready to defend himself should she attack. Would it come to a fight? He wasn't certain. Could he win? Maybe. Sarah was clearly a cut above Adam, but then again, he didn't rightly know how powerful he'd become himself since his death. His body felt so damn powerful right now, but she could easily be his match for all he knew. In any case, he wouldn't be the one to throw the first punch. Not here. Was that Luke's plan? Piss him off, make him kickstart a fight with Sarah, then get him kicked out of heaven. Clever girl. Something ugly curdled in his chest. It almost felt like respect. Were he alive, he might have fallen for it. Sarah sighed suddenly, drawing his attention back to her. You are, quite possibly, the most exasperating angel I've ever met. Thanks. It wasn't a compliment. She sank back into her seat with a huff. Please, won't you sit? He crossed both arms before his chest, wings twitching at his back. I'll stand, if it's all the same to you. Very well. Who told you of this? Lute. No, don't answer. She waved him down before he could get a word in edgewise. Of course she did. That girl seems determined to make you fall. His brow furrowed in momentary confusion. Fall. Sarah looked away, unable to meet his gaze. It is the fate of an angel who does disreputable things. No, no, no. He wasn't letting her wriggle out of this. You mean like Adam? Oh, wait. He snapped his fingers. He hasn't fallen, has he? So why wold I for asking about Extermination Day? Sarah pinched the bridge of nose, closed her eyes and heaved a long-suffering sigh. Why must you be this way? Questioning everything, upsetting the natural order of things. It's not like me to leave things be if something's wrong. It's human nature. You're not human. She sprang to her feet, tiara glowing, wings flaring as she shouted at him, distress bleeding through her facade at long last. Neither of us are. We command legions, possess powers that would make mortals quake, and with great power comes great responsibility. We must be better than those who have come before us. Silence stretched between them, fit to strange them both. Naruto stood his ground. Answer my questions and we can be. Did you sanction this? He didn't hate Sarah, but he wasn't exactly her biggest fang right now, either. Her response here hinged on how he would treat her in the future. And so he waited. Until she looked away. Something cracked deep in his chest at that. It felt like his soul. You did, didn't you? All those people. Sarah glanced at him out the corner of her eye. Hell was in open revolt. We have no choice. Flimsy argument remained flimsy. Last I checked, there wasn't an army at our gates, so someone's lying. He tilted his head and made a shushing noise when she tried to interrupt. Tell me, who exactly told you hell was up in arms in the first place? Sarah tried but subsequently failed to hid her wince. Adam. Right. He thumbed his chin. And I'm guessing he was all for this extermination of yours. Sarah bit her lip. Did you ever go down there yourself to confirm his words? The silence was her answer. You allow Extermination Day to happen and you've never been down there in person. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. I'm sorry, you wanna run that shit by me again. Otherwise. All of heaven dimmed around him anew, more than ever before. A guy might get the wrong idea, ya know. Fury bubbled up in him, not a wrenching rage as one might expect, but something altogether colder. Oh, he was still angry, downright livid, but it was a fa cry from the seething tempest Adam had unwittingly ignited in his idiocy. This was different, cold, arctic, glacial. For a moment, just a moment, it felt like his very soul was frozen solid, a sliver of ice, such was the frigid fury within. Huh, a small, rational part of him mused, I think this place might be affecting my emotions. He took a deep breath and let it go, releasing it now in a plume of frigid steam. All right, he exhaled softly. I've had enough. Then he moved. His right hand settled on Sarah's desk and ripped it aside, casting it into wall with a sonorous crash. She recoiled, but he had no pity left in his heart to be moved by such a sound. He didn't miss a beat and waded through the mess it made, finger jabbing forward in accusation like some glowing dagger. Sarah shrank back from it as much as him. What are you doing? Naruto pressed his advantage, even as anger festered in his chest. You're killing countless souls on the off chance they might revolt again, tarring them all with the same brush. Can't say I agree with that. Hell is full of monsters and madmen. Can't you see why I'm doing this? The older seraphim flung out an arm to ward him off, or perhaps she feared an attack, he wasn't sure which. I've got people to protect. Souls I can't neglect, so I'm not taking chances here. Her brow furrowed when he didn't budge. Make no mistake, if you make one wrong move, you're done for. Enough. His wings flared, cutting her off with a rush of wind. In the silence that followed, no one dared breathe. Until he took the initiative. Me, you've made your one wrong move. He shouted over her, voice rising to stifle her shout as much as the momentary gale he'd summoned. Now you're done for. His finger drilled in, jabbing her ribs, causing her to retreat with a yelp. I will be the one to prove that you're done for. Not even a prayer's gonna save you now, 'cause you're done for. You better not run, or soon those wings will be done for. Sarah glared back at him, defiant, unrepentant, chin jutting out furiously, a myriad mess of eyes glowing in her hair as she snapped back. These souls are like my children, I must protect them at all costs. Up came her hand between her breasts, eyes blazing. The last time I failed in my duty, heaven faced a heavy loss. I just want to protect my people with this fragile piece we have. Still better to save than to stab. She rolled her eyes and scoffed. I do what is required. He sucked in a sharp breath, offended. To think that Emily admired you. That took the wind right out of her sails, for Sarah made a pained noise of panic. You mustn't tell her about this. Huh, her panic was all too real. Emily might not be a part of Sarah's scheme after all. He filed her reaction away for later. Mustn't I? He snapped back, feigning ignorance instead. Are we done with our little rhyme session now? Or were we singing? This is no laughing matter. No laughing matter. Her words were admirable, but misguided. No, foolish, even. Couldn't she see what she was doing here? Naruto shook his head. I think it's laughable that you're confusing peace with quiet. No matter how hard you try, the rest of heaven will find out. You've gotten lucky so far, but this isn't the kind of secret that can last forever. People will find out about this. A guilty conscience, loose lips, or a redeemed soul, it doesn't matter how long it takes because it will happen. The head seraphim squinted at him. What are you proposing? He scoffed at her, stamping down on his anger. They're gonna find out sooner or later, all you can do is make sure they can understand. Without turning them into zealots. You need to tell them yourself before they find out on their own. In the meantime, I'm going down there. Sarah blinked. Down where? He smirked. Where do you think? She balked. You want to visit hell? Are you mad? Naruto winked. Wait. Emily cornered him before he could make his escape. Perhaps escape wasn't the right word. No, Naruto knew it wasn't, if only because he wasn't trying to run away from anything. Heaven had little power over him, and Sarah even less, but even so, he couldn't quite quell the sudden urge to flee when he heard her voice. It wasn't a command or a demand, nor an exclamation, but something so much worse. Pleading. Begging him to stop at the edge of the clouds, to just wait a moment, take a step back, and reconsider his actions. Damneedle, he wasn't even looking Emily's way and already he felt weak. He'd been trying to avoid her with good reason, since his bitter argument with Sarah. Everything would be so much simpler if he just went down for a little while and found the truth on his own. Maybe then he'd have a better perspective on this purge madness, maybe then it would all make sense, maybe. Bah, who was he kidding? Life, especially the afterlife, was seldom so simple. Emily reached his side a moment later and took a hold of his hand tightly. Where are you going? Lifting his chin, He clenched both fists at his side and reaffirmed his resolve. Down. She looked to him with her guileless lilac eyes, still clinging onto him. Why? The things he could say. Sarah's words came back to him unbidden. Please, don't tell Emily. A brief surge of righteous anger bloomed in his gut and scowling, he stomped it down. This was probably going to blow up in his face, he just knew it. Even so, he didn't have the heart to do it, to be the one to take her innocence and smash it. He simply couldn't bring himself to corrupt this pure girl. He knew she was no child despite her slight appearance, but even so, he wanted to protect her from the awful truth. Learning about the purge, no matter how necessary or unnecessary it might be, had broken something deep inside him. Kurama would have had something wise and sage to say about this, he was sure of it. He would have given him good advice and maybe, just maybe, with his help, he might have made it through. And yet Kurama was gone. The lack of his presence was a hole in his heart, gnawing and twisting and biting until he felt hollow inside. But he absolutely refused to take that anger out on Emily. So he passed the buck instead. Reasons. He made a point of looking away. They're not mine to tell. Go and ask Sarah about them if you like. Her gaze narrowed. Did she say something to you? Naruto mimed the action of zipping his lips. Emily stomped her foot, but he held firm. Yes. Deflection successful. Not his problem anymore. He'd kept his end of the bargain. Emily could ferret out the truth of her own accord and Sarah couldn't cast the crime at his feet. Better yet, he wouldn't be around for the inevitable explosion and blame game that followed. Perhaps that was cowardly of him, but he didn't want this pure little seraphim to think ill of him. She squeezed his hand, suddenly diverting his attention. You're going down there, aren't you? I should accompany you. Naruto nearly choked on his own spit. No, no, no. Bad idea. All the bad ideas. You can't. He crouched down, the better to avoid towering over her, looking her in the eye. Hell's no place for someone of your stature. Emily yanked her hand from his, crossed both arms over her chest, and glared at him. Because I'm a child. Sage, save him from stubborn girls. For the love of. Carefully, he reached out and reclaimed her left hand in his right. No one is calling you a child, ya know. She tried to glare at him, but managed only an adorable pout. You're acting like I'm one. I ain't. He rasped a little laugh despite himself, only to laugh harder when she kicked his shin. Really, I'm not. This is just something I have to do on my own. That was the truth of it. Had to find his answers alone, one way or another. Unbiased. Only then would he know peace. He knew he had Emily when her fingers threaded through his own. Will you come back? His head bobbed. Soon as I can. Promise. He held up his free hand and wiggled his pinky finger at her. Oh, you. Emily seized it in her own with small giggle, curling her little finger tight, but that wasn't enough for her. She darted in under his arms and gave him a hug, burying her head in his chest as her small arms struggled to wrap around his broad back. Be safe. Naruto froze up for what felt like an eternity, uncertain as to how he should react. How long had it been since someone hugged him? Emily made the choice for him and squeezed him tighter. Hug me back. A flicker of his old self broke through and he returned it, planting his chin on her shoulder. I'll be right, all right, don't worry. She drew back to regard him with damp, shimmering eyes. Promise me you won't become a fallen. Naruto hesitated. Promise me. Mistaking his silence for anxiety, Emily latched onto both his hands this time in desperation and held tighter to him. I can't bear the thought of it. Frankly, he wasn't sure he could become a fallen. Call it a hunch, call it a feeling, but he felt like he was on the right path. Besides, if his awful argument against Sarah and the laws of heaven hadn't seen him cast out, he wasn't sure what could. Even his so-called descent was just him popping down to the check out the underworld for himself. Maybe he was missing something here, maybe not. In the end, there was only one way to find out. Right, everything would be fine. He had to tell himself that. Else, he might lose what little sanity he possessed. And so, he blew out a breathy sigh, hoping he could honor the words he was about to say. I promise. Something softened in Emily's face. Good. She darted forward and took flight. This time he was keenly aware of her kissing his forehead this time, rather than his cheek. The act was pure as the driven snow, chaste, even. His face burned all the same. That was twice now. Once was an accident, twice was coincidence, thrice, well, there hadn't been 3 times yet, but this. It felt like something, you know. She leaned in and whispered quickly into his ear. If you're looking for the person in charge, you should go to the angelic embassy. Ask for an audience with. The rest of her words were inaudible, only to him. His eyes widened ever so slightly. Ah, thanks. He turned, but the little seraphim was already long gone, wheeling away into the heavens. He could have caught her if he wanted to, but something told him she wouldn't much appreciate that. No, best to let her go for now. They could sort this whatever it may be upon his return. All right, then. He walked to the edge of the clouds and steeled himself. If there really was something down there, he couldn't see it. There was too much light and the clouds were thicker than any fog he'd seen. And yet he knew where to go. How hard could this be? Just fly straight down at top speed, land, have a look about, ask a few questions and go back up once he was satisfied. Surely it wouldn't take more than a day, 3 at most. Everything would be fine. What could possibly go wrong? ... I just jinxed myself, didn't I? Nah, he didn't believe in that sort of thing. He tucked in all 10 of his wings against his back, took a deep breath, stepped off the edge and... Bonsai. 0.0.0.0. Reality trembled. Contorted. Twisted. Resisted. Something shattered. And then he was through. 0.0.0.0. Carmen heard the explosion from on high, because someone had torn open the sky. Racing a window, she flung it open just in time to see all hell break loose. Of course it had to be on her damn turf, didn't it? A lone angel soared down through at speed. And plowed clean through a nearby building. Another now. Another. Yet another. That can't be good. 0.0.0.0. Alistair looked up from his balcony as a distant explosion rattled the world. He knew that noise. It was the sound of change, knocking on his door. And so he observed really as a star fell from heaven. That glorious glimpse of gold of light rocketed down from the on high to the ground at absurd speed, careening through everything in its path, heedless of the carnage it caused. This wasn't another one of heaven's purges. Far from it. This was something new, something unexpected. What fun. Rising to his feet, the radio demon tittered merrily. Well, this promises to be entertaining. He wondered if the hotel's newest guest had noticed it as well. 0.0.0.0. He squinted at the falling star from afar. He was many things, but not blind. He recognized that energy. He smiled at it. He knew. Naruto. 0.0.0.0. Negativity. It assailed Naruto at every angle, so much so that he had to close his eyes against it and seal off his sixth sense for a moment lest he vomit outright. Unfortunately, that moment cost him dearly. The sheer assault on his senses actually knocked him out for a moment. Not long, barely a second, but it physically threw off his descent. What had once been a relatively controlled flight immediately became an uncontrolled tumble that sent him crashing through a building. Followed by another. Then another. Another. Vaguely he was aware of shouts and screams of alarm, but momentum dragged him on relentlessly as he hollered apologies. Wham. What the hell? Sorry. Blam. My leg. Sorry. Slam. That was my favorite table, asshole. Sorry tilde. By the time he finally regained control it was too late. He slammed down into the street on bent knee, the sheer shockwave of which rattled his bones and had his wings tucking in tight against his back. From there, he sucked in a quick, ragged breath, and climbed back to his feet, reeling a little. Okay. Didn't stick the landing. This had to be the place, yet this so-called hell didn't look anything like what he'd thought it would be. From there, getting his bearings proved to be an exercise in futility. Although he could see burning buildings aplenty and plenty of red sky, he had no idea where he'd landed. Really could have used Kurama's advice right about now. Alas, he had only the void. Shunting open his senses, he winced at the ensuing negativity, but it wasn't such a shock to him anymore. Appalling. Yes. Shocking. Very much so. But he found himself gradually growing used to it. That little lapse from before wouldn't be enough to knock him out again. But this place was wrong. Wrong, terribly and horribly wrong. All twisted emotions and greed and anger and lust woven together in a crippling cocktail that threatened to cripple him with a migraine. And the smell. Good Lord, the smell. He didn't even have words for it. Another burst of negativity assailed him, sending him staggering into a wall. He grit his teeth against the pain that followed, clamping one hand to the side of his head to stave it off, to no avail. It was enough to drown a man. He could barely keep his head above water. How did people live here? Sarah's words came back to him, sad and resigned. You will find no goodness there. No, there must be some good here. There had to be. He refused to believe all this was for nothing. Holy shit. A new voice had him craning his head. Seemed someone had noticed his impromptu landing, and they stood not a yard away. Gold-red eyes gleamed at him, set within a round bright pink-skinned face bearing long pale hair gone almost white, a pair of equally pink horns jutting up from her head. Come to think of it, the rest of her looked pretty pink at that. Like a bright, hot pink. And were those wings jutting from her back? And a tail. He shook his head once and squinted at the newcomer anew, only to realize the scantily clad outfit she was wearing, and good lord, she had legs for days. No, Naruto. Bad Naruto. Focus. Thankfully, she seemed to be eyeing him up just as hard. She'd stopped short. Did a double take. Now. Hello, handsome, where did you come from? His wings flared behind him almost of their own accord, bathing her in angelic light. That answer your question? The horned woman's gaze flitted up and bulged as she beheld them, alongside his halo. Oh, shit. She recoiled and retreated, stumbling over herself. You're in. Hey, wait. He grabbed at her wrist, drawing her back before she could bolt. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to talk. No way. Nah. She hissed and clawed at his chest, breaking her nails. Tell that to the buildings, Buster. He reeled her in, butting his head against hers. That was an accident. Her tail lashed at his face like a whip. He caught it and yanked. Much to his surprise, the winged woman moaned. Naruto tilted his head, baffled. Did you just? Her face flushed deeply. You didn't hear shit. Pretty sure I heard what was that for? She'd stomped on his foot. He glared at the feisty horned woman, and she glared right back at him, breasts smashed up against his chest, heaving for air, lips inches from his own. Tension hung hot and thick between them, and he suddenly found himself stricken by a strange urge to something he really shouldn't. I'm sorry, I think we both got off on the wrong foot, here. Tentatively, he released her tail and, still holding her, drew back at arm's length. Why don't we start with our names? Ha, that's rich. She snapped sharp teeth at him in a snarl, forcing him to draw back or be bitten. You first, angel asshole. For a moment, there, he saw red. Cheeky minx. She was doing a fine job provoking him. Naruto. He said his name for her sake as much as his. And you are. Verosuke Mayday. She supplied warily. So what now? You gonna kill me? Her fangs flashed as she snarled at him. Add my name to your tally. Do angels have those? I'm gonna let you go. Her jaw clicked open. Angel boy, say what now? I said I'm letting you go. When she scowled at him, he hastened to amend his statement. Once I ask you a few questions, you're free to leave. Verosuke scowled at him. What's the catch? Want me to get a head start before you cut me down? He shook his head slowly, bangs swaying side to side. Nope. Her scowl redoubled. Not gonna stab me in the back. Why would I even? Because that's what you angels do. She stomped a heeled foot on his again and thrust her face into his, either trying to harm or scare him, for what little good it did. Adam brings you shits down here every year to hunt us like it's a damn game. You get an early start this year. Adam. Here at last a smile touched his face. I'm nothing like that guy. I beat him black and blue. Ha. She barked a laugh. Despite her derision, it was a strangely pleasant sound. Prove it. It's the truth. He shrugged a shoulder. You'll just have to take my word for it. The word of an angel. She scoffed, leaning back. Why in the hells should I believe you? An idea dawned. Or I could show you. Shoo me whaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaa Verosuke opened her eyes and shoved his chakra into her, showing her the memory in question, the moment of Adam's defeat in all its painful glory. A string of varied swears and syllables followed her curse. Actually understood a few of them before she reclaimed her voice again, and when she did speak, it was little more than a weak whine. Okay. She writhed in his grasp, gasping aloud. I give. Whatever you're doing, stoop. He released her, leaving her to crumple bonelessly to her knees before him. She swayed where he'd left her, eyes half-lidded. At length, they refocused. What in the hell was that? He could have explained it any number of ways. He settled for the truth. A memory. What kind of memory rattles the inside of someone's skull? Sorry, did that hurt? There you go apologizing again. Her tail flicked as she squinted up at him, still on her guard. You're really not gonna kill me? He held up his hand. Scout's honor. She smacked her lips at him. Yeah, gonna have to better than that. You angelic types ain't big on honor. Adam really had carved an awful reputation down here, hadn't he? Alright, miss, I promise I won't hurt you. And if you have any idea who I am, you'd know that I never go back on my word. Something about his conviction must have finally got through to the surly succubus her, because she slumped with a sigh. Miss, Verosuke rasped a laugh. Shit, you're the real deal, aren't you? You're nothing like Adam at all. Naruto blew out a sigh. I did tell you. You really did, didn't you? Her tail flicked once more as she tried to rise and failed before, crumpling back to the ground. Good on you. Bastard offed one of my besties last year. Hope he's down and out for good. A beat of silence passed between them as she looked him up and down anew, considering something else, now. You know, I've never done it with an angel before. He frowned. Done what? Verosuke blinked, incredulous. You cannot be serious. Naruto returned her blink with two of his own. Pretty sure I am. Hells, you actually are. The succubus licked her lips. Aren't you adorable? Such was the beginning of a rather spectacular day. Too much negativity. Naruto grimaced against it with every step he took. It was like a miasma down here, and it was all he could do not to choke on the air itself. He isolated his sixth sense and warded himself against it as best he could, but it still lingered at the edge of his senses like some sly snake trying to wriggle its way into his mind. Lies and riddles. Fallacies and falsehoods. There was so much darkness down here, so much pain and fury and hate that it made the angel in him want to lash out. To summon a weapon to his hand and... No. He wouldn't give Sarah the satisfaction. She wasn't right. Couldn't be. Unacceptable. Just the thought of her and Lute laughing at him was enough to solidify his resolve. And so he steeled himself against his doubts and walked on. It was a lot to take in, but he at least had some small semblance of what he wanted to do where he wanted to go. Ask his questions, get to the angelic embassy, figure out what was going on. Sounded simple on paper. No. Verosuke wasn't simple. She was a talker. He'd come to realize that quickly enough, but she was also a looker. More than that, a toucher. More than once her shoulder bumped into him, her hip brushing against his with nearly every other step. It baffled him to no end. Only a few minutes ago she'd been kicking and screaming to get away from, and yes, while he was grateful she'd taken him for his word, he had no idea why she was getting so touchy-feely all of a sudden. What was she up to? In the end, all he could do was walk forward, listening with half an ear as Verosuke babbled on. So are angels like, sensitive to negativity, or something? Nope. He took a brief breath to steady himself and mustered a winning smile. Just me. The succubus hummed once, pleased by his admission. Good to know. Naruto frowned down at her. What was that? Nothing. She looked away quickly. HRRRMMM. Her tail was swaying awfully close to his leg. He brushed it away, only to earn a startled yelp from the young woman. Hey, no touchy. A blonde brow rose in mild consternation, but he refused to rise to her bait. You're the one who's been touching me. Nothing wrong with a little window shopping. She looked him up and down. You're no Blitzo. Who? X. She crossed both arms before her bountiful bosom and smacked her lips, producing an audible pop. With a capital X. If I never see that imp again, it'll be too soon. Another migraine rattled his temples, forcing him to close down his senses once more. Verosuke saw it. Buddy, just be glad you didn't land on the wrath ring. You wouldn't last the day. He shot her a baleful look, to which the horned woman shrugged her shoulders. Just saying. You really don't know much about this place, do ya, Whiskers? Please don't call me that. Verosuke grinned. She did, in fact, call him that. On that less than pleasant note, he returned his attention his surroundings. This place wasn't anything like he'd expected it to be. He'd thought there would be a lot more. Fire and brimstone, ya know. He could feel countless eyes watching from the shadows, not doubt intimidated by his holy presence and wings alike. Even if Verosuke wasn't, he might wanna do something about that. Ducking into a nearby alley, he dragged Verosuke with him into the shadows, heedless of her yelp. Somewhere between one sputtering protest and another as she spooned against him, he pressed both hands together. A brief plume of smoke and the transformation jutsu was done. It didn't do anything for his newfound height, but it did help to hide his accessories. When he emerged, he looked much as he had in his old life, much to her surprise. Verosuke balked. You can change your appearance. Just like that. Yup. She licked her lips. Mama likes. Most angels can't pull off that kinda hat trick. He beamed. I'm not most angels. Clearly. The silence held between them, but only for a moment. So you angels can't die, right? Skirting around a pothole in the street, he shook his head. Thought I was supposed to be the one asking questions, ya know. But it's true, isn't it? She skipped ahead of him to slow him down. Weapons don't work on you. Bloody immortal. One good stab from those angelic weapons of yours and we die. But you bastards can't be killed. Much to his chagrin, she hands clasped behind her back and leaned forward as she began walking backward, granting him a glorious glimpse of her assets before he thought to drag his eyes upward. Isn't that so? Naruto stubbornly averted his gaze. It's not something I've tested. Verosuke noticed his stiffness and winked. See something you like, big boy? No. Spinning about, she began walking ahead of him, craning her to expose the slender expanse of her neck. You sure? Yes, he grunted. And here I thought angels weren't supposed to lie out. She yelped as he thumped her over the head, right between the horns. Okay. No need to get kinky, geez. He honestly didn't know what to make of this so-called demon. She seemed to delight in teasing him, but when he actually touched, she folded faster than a house of cards. She was far from pure, but he'd seen and sensed far worse both in his life and afterlife. Maybe the underworld was something of a mixed bag. Kurama would have called it wishful thinking. I mean, it's a joke, right? What you were saying earlier. Don't get me wrong. He came back to himself just in time to catch the tail end of her conversation. You're easy on the eyes, but redemption. For people like us. Nah. She crossed both arms before her face in the shape of an X. Don't bother. Don't even try. There are some messed up people down here. I'm not even the worst of them. Can't even hold a candle. Overlords are the sins. They're crazy. An explosion rattled the world behind them. Naruto looked back with a low whistle, watching a plume of smoke rise into the distance. Like that. Yeah, like that. He could hear shouts and gunfire in the distance. He pivoted towards the noise, looking to help. Don't bother. Versailles caught him by the wrist, and in a rare moment of restraint, he allowed it. It's just another gang war. I mean, technically we're on. Abruptly, her face drained of color. Naruto noticed. What? We need to go. She yanked his arm and started running. Now. Right freakin' now. He tore his arm from hers, keeping pace easily enough. Why? She tossed a glare over her shoulder. This is Karma Carmine's turf and you wrecked a bunch of her buildings. Did you forget about the disguise? She only ran faster. I also have done some stuff to piss her off. What did you do? Slept with one of her daughters. A bead of sweat ran down his brow. Maybe you oughta apologize about that. No. Do not mess with her. You may be an angel, but she will absolutely destroy my ass. A blonde brow rose at that image. Might wanna watch the wording there, miss. Oh, so you get that reference, but not me coming onto you. Everything clicked into place. You were coming onto me. You cannot be serious. They sprinted round the corner and came face to face with a wall of lead. More aptly, a number of gangsters holding a great deal of guns, each of which unloaded on them the second they were in range. Verosuke spat a curse. Ah, she. Naruto dropped the disguise, grabbed his new companion by the waist and yanked her inward. All 10 of his wings went up and the bullets went down, spattering harmlessly against the impromptu shield he'd raised. Huh, Verosuke had been right. This didn't even tickle. He looked down at her, framed in the shadow of his wings. You good? Why yeah, she trembled as she choked the word out. Thanks, almost bit the bullet there. Annoyed by her joke as much those firing upon him, he swept one wing outward in a flash of golden light. Bullets ricocheted. Men and women dropped like flies. Crap baskets. Hadn't meant to do that. Someone screamed. Angel. Another skirted around him and lunged in at his flank with a shriek, trying to slam a knife into his back as bullets pinged harmlessly off his raised wings. It was a very nice attack. They had impeccable timing if nothing else. Shame it was utterly doomed to fail. Naruto pivoted, caught the madman's fist in his palm, knife and all, then yanked with the intent of yanking his attacker off the ground and brandishing him as a hostage to stop the gunfire. He succeeded, albeit not at all in the way he'd intended. Much to his chagrin, their limb tore off in his grasp at the shoulder with a wet-sucking sound. Naruto balked. Verosuke gagged, one hand flying to her mouth to stifle her gorge at the grisly sight. His attacker howled in agony. Gah, you shit, I needed that. Oops, he blanched. Didn't realize you were so fragile. The poor gangster reeled on their feet, green skin gone greener still. Can I have my arm back? He thumped them over the head with it and knocked him out. No. Rounding on the remainder, he raised his right hand. Stop, all of you. At that command, the gangsters, mobsters, hitmen, whatever, he didn't much care for titles at the moment, parted as someone stalked through. He took the newcomer in at a glance. Glowing white eyes set against sinister scarlet sclera, tapering off into dark wicked lashes. Her skin was dusky as ash, her long white hair streaked with a touch of darkness bound back into 2 wicked spikes atop her head. He wondered what it looked like when she let it down. Her outfit likewise a mad blend between black and white, right down to the strange leggings she wore. No, wait, those weren't leggings at all. The strange wrappings around her legs hummed to his senses, almost distractingly so. Envoy of heaven. She spoke the word stiffly, almost coldly. Why are you here? We're not due for another purge yet. I'm not here for a fight. He lowered his arms. Your boys started this. Then why are you here? No matter how he said this, he was going to sound like an idiot, wasn't he? Would you believe me if I said happiness and redemption? Her brow furrowed. No. Verosuke ducked. Shit, that's Carmilla Carmen. Hello, Verosuke. How nice to see you again. The Overlord smile said otherwise. I'll deal with you shortly. Her piercing eyes swept back to him. If you haven't any business here, then I'll have to ask you to leave. He stepped forward instead. I can't let you take her. Mirta Descarada, the Lady Overlord muttered something in a different language he didn't wholly understand at first. It didn't sound terribly flattering. That girl is nothing but trouble. What do you want with her? Well, he clasped both hands behind his head, she's kinda my guide. Carmilla squinted. She squinted hard. Guide. He winced in return. It's a long story. She glowered at him. Recognition dawned. I have no desire to fight you. Great. But neither can I let you pass after what you've done. She looked to her fallen fellows. You blasted through 3 of my buildings, killed 3 of my men, maimed another, and now you're sheltering that little puta over there. Veronica waved sheepishly. Sorry, I'm with tall, bright, and handsome. Naruto blew out a breath and looked Carmine's way. Lady, if I wanted to seriously hurt anyone, I would have. A pale brow rose. Right, okay. He held up both hands before she could explode. But regardless, it wasn't intentional. They started this. She planted a hand on her hip, cocking her body towards him. The same could be said of you when you came crashing down from the heavens. He blanched anew, shame curdling in his gust. And I'm sorry about that, really, I am, but I can't exactly let you detain me here, or her. In truth, he could have flown away. Would have been easy. But that wouldn't be fun, and he had no desire to make another enemy so soon after landing here. Tell you what, let's fight for her. Carmilla scoffed. You jest. Nope, he retorted. Nothing fancy. You and me, right here, right now. No weapons or tricks, our fists and feet. I can't hurt you. Liar. He sensed the falsehood in the air, but didn't call her on it. Knock me down and I'll submit to you. He sketched a bow. I won't even use my wings. Veronica made an indignant noise in the background. Hey, do I not get a say in this? They both rounded on her. No, you do not. Very well, Carmen conceded, surprising him. But when I win this paltry contest of yours, and I will win, you will leave this place in peace and never return. Sure, and when I win, you'll let us leave. An idea dawned and he smacked his fist down atop an open palm. And you'll be my friend. How's that sound? Childish, she replied. Are you certain you're an angel? Naruto tucked his wings tight between his shoulders in response. Are you sure you're a demon? Credit where it was due, the overlord wasted no time. Rather than rise to his retort, she stepped forward, warding one arm before herself. He matched her, and nearly lost his head as her heel swept in. She's a kicker. Instinct had him ducking with a laugh, delighted by her dexterity. The moment he gave ground, she was on him in a graceful pirouette, striking high for his face with 3 quick sweeps of her legs. She had speed, he'd give her that. He dodged them all, hands hung loose at his sides as he continued to yield the field. Carmilla didn't retort to that effect, she simply scowled and sashayed forward. What's wrong? Fight back. This time he caught her ankle, right where her leg wrappings were thickest. His hand stung and her scowl became a small, secretive smile. So that was it. Angelic steel. Recoiling, he released her and took a kick to the chest for his troubles. She didn't use her hands to fight, not once, because didn't need to. She was poetry in motion, flowing like water. He couldn't find the right word until he did. Dance. This was a dance. Perhaps the finest he'd ever known. Dodging, swaying, weaving, they wove around one another, trading blows as they went. He could have crushed her 7 different ways to Sunday, but he didn't want to. She was all smoothness and grace, right in his face. At his height, she couldn't touch him. Even now, with him actively handicapping himself, she didn't come close to the most fearsome foes he'd fought. And yet, his blood began to sing. What fun, such fun. Another light laugh escaped him as they continued their wild waltz, flowing around rubble with Ersatz skill. Carmen clicked her tongue as he slapped another of her kicks aside. Does this amuse you? Why wouldn't it? This is fun. Fun. She faltered for a moment and he took full advantage, hammering a spin kick into his ribs, drawing a pained gasp from her lips. I hadn't thought you the sort. She struck the ground hands first and pivoted her entire body to sweep low for his feet, forcing him to lift his left leg and block her. Carmine's smile said he'd made a mistake. The moment he did, she dropped down on all fours and somehow flowed around him to lash out at his last leg. Cute. He hopped into the air and slammed his feet into her face, sending her shooting across the street and into a building. Not a heartbeat later she was up and at him. He spied the burnt-out wreck of a car nearby and kicked it at her, only for her to divert it easily with both hands, first time she bothered to use them in this fight, and fly at him again. Her heel struck for his spleen, and he retaliated by thrusting an open palm against her collarbone. A mere fourth of his usual force blasted her backwards, yet as she flew she caught a telephone pole with one leg, swung herself around and used her own momentum to launch herself at him anew. Her right leg soared up and came crashing down in an axe kick, forcing him to block with crossed arms overhead. Carmen hit hard. Harder than he'd expected. He grinned up at her from the shadow of his interlocked limbs, eyes gleaming a glowing gold as rubble rose into the air. Her sparkling silver eyes seared down into him with a hint of challenge, the smallest of smiles tugging at her lips, imparting a singular demand upon him. Try harder. But all that power had to go somewhere. In a word, down. With an ominous crrraack of sound, the street splintered underfoot, forcing them apart. Kicking of a tumbling shard of rubble, he spied her silhouette in the haze of dust that followed and struck low, hammering a fist into where he knew her stomach would be. A gasp of pain was his reward as the smoke cleared and she took a tumble to get away from him. He gave chase and focused on her further as they dueled, narrowing his senses upon her nearly to the exclusion of all else, the better to ignore his migraine. What he found there impressed him. She fought viciously but with dignity. There was an elegance to it, refinement one might not expect from a denizen of the underworld. Carmen wasn't good, but she wasn't entirely bad either. She possessed a steely resolve rivaled only by a few. More than that, he could sense a deep and abiding love for her daughters. She had more than one, and a steely determination to protect them above all else. And there, beneath it all, a deep and all-encompassing loneliness. She'd sacrificed so much for them. Even her own happiness. You're a good mom, ain't ya? Her brow furrowed. How do you know that? Oops. Belatedly he realized he'd inadvertently spoken the words aloud. He'd pried too far. Delved too deep. He pulled back and she took full advantage, falling upon him in a storm of blows. A foot caught him in the face, not harming him, but pushing him back all the same. Let's call it an angel thing. She growled and attacked him again, their world dissolving into a whirling dervish of destruction. He wasn't sure how much time passed. Didn't even care, really. He could have ended the fight multiple times, but each time he found himself passing up the finish blow. He was wearing her down, he knew, but he couldn't bring himself to administer that final strike. This was fun, entertaining, even. He didn't want it to end. And then someone ruined it. One of Carmine's men saw an opportunity and took it. A stray bullet whistled his way and on a whim, he deflected it with one hand. It hit Carmen. Or rather, the cloth holding up her hair. Gravity did the rest. Those pale tresses collapsed under their own weight and cascaded down her back in a rush of black and white. Carmilla rounded on them, hair flaring around her. Deja de disparar. Stop shooting. Huh. Naruto paused, the thrill of battle finally leaving him. You look nice with your hair down. A spot of high color turned her pale face red. Your compliment is un necessary. I won that duel, clearly. Ha. He rounded on her, incredulous. In what universe? In this one, pendejo. He didn't need no translation for that. I had you on the ropes. She huffed a laugh. You were right where I wanted you. Yeah, kicking your ass. Ha. Carmilla tossed her head back and ran a hand through her long hair. I seem to recall hitting you several times. Naruto barked a laugh and butted his head against hers. And I seem to recall knocking you through a building. As that's so. Her silver eyes narrowed to near, feral slits as she leered up at him. You seem to have a poor memory, boy. Perhaps we should go again. He growled at her, eyes aglow. Fine by me. She hissed back. Best 2 out of 3. Winner take all. Oh, for crying out loud. A familiar voice interjected before either of them could make good on that statement. Get a room. Naruto jolted with a blink, and just like that, the spell between them broke. Carmen rounded on Veronica, redder than ever before. Impudent girl. On that was his cue. Exit stage left. Make like a banana and split. He didn't dare wait to see what else Carmen might say. I guess we're done here. Been fun, let's do it again. Quickly, he stepped back, grabbed Veronica by the waist, and spread his wings wide. Her eyes bulged. Wait, why? Naruto never heard the rest. They took flight. Land. Veronica Mayday all flung herself down on the asphalt with a cry of absolute bliss and promptly began making sweet love to it. Sweet terra firma. She kissed the ground with a hysteric laugh, all but sprawling herself across it, uncaring of how she looked while she wriggled and squirmed. Come to mama. I'll never forsake you, Again Tilda. You all right, there? Heat flooded her face. All right. No, she was not. She was the opposite of all right. Springing to her feet, the Hellborn instantly stopped what she was doing and whirled to face her savior. You jerk. She thumped his chest with a furious fist, over and over again. Do you have any idea how fast you were flying? I almost suffocated back there. Really? Naruto thumbed his chin. I wasn't flying all that fast. Veronica flung up her arms. In what world is that not fast? His head tilted, mildly perplexed. Mine. Had he been holding back? Exasperated and at her wit's end, she did something foolish and she lashed out. Her tail cracked out at his face like a whip, only to be caught just short of his eyes. Her own bulged, recalling exactly what happened the last time he'd grabbed her tail. A pitiful squeak fled from her lips. You wouldn't dare. There it was, the gauntlet thrown at his feet. Naruto wouldn't, she knew. Sure, he could fight and crush and kill, but at the end of the day he was an angel. Goody two shoes, that sort of thing. He'd probably let right go of her again, just like he had the last time, and she would tease him to high heaven about it. Victory was hers. She stepped closer and laid a hand on his chest. The smirk that followed was just the cherry on top. Be a good boy and let go now, would you kindly? Errors were made. She realized it the moment his face collapsed into a severe scowl. Since when are you the boss of me? Naturally, she had to rise to that challenge. Buddy, you might be an angel, but you're soft. A blonde brow rose as he growled at her. As that's so. In response, he pinched the tip of her tail between his thumb and forefinger, deliberately rubbing both together in a way that created delicious friction and, OHHH goddess that felt good. Verosuke's legs all but buckled beneath her, leaving her to crumple at his feet in a magnificent moaning mess, smoldering stars bursting behind her eyes. Naruto held onto her tail like a leash and stoically stared at the sky, refusing to give her the satisfaction of his gaze. What have we learned? Like the hell she was gonna give in that easily. That you like seeing me on my knees, Tilda. Her voice peaked into a pleasured whine as he pinched her tail again, leaving her in a daze. Nice try. She rasped a laugh, spying the flush on his whiskered cheeks despite his adamant refusal to look at her. It'll take more than that me say sorry, Tilda. Stupid sensitive tail. It had been ages since someone made her their bitch. She kinda liked it. Are ya done? She flipped him off. Bite me, you whiskey on the rocks. He made an annoyed noise as she taunted him and squeezed again, causing her to arch her back, eyes rolling in her head. Why the long face? She crooned. If you wanna bang me that badly, you just had to say so, Tilda. Another wave hit, leaving her wasted and gasping for air, forcing her to look up at him. Naruto finally met her gaze, and when he did, he looked terrifying, eyes gleaming ghastly gold, all 10 of his wings spread wide behind him, dim light from above catching in his glowing hair, casting his face into shadow. Who said demons were the scariest things down here? Not even the overlords could possibly hold a candle to him. He loomed large over her like a weapon of war, holy wrath ready to come crashing down on her head. How easily he might cut through her if she pissed him off. Hot. Much to her annoyance, he released her tail. Ah, she pouted. Why'd ya stop? I thought you were torture me. He scowled at her. This clearly isn't a punishment for you. You're enjoying it too much. Boo. Hiss. He'd caught on. A blonde brow rose in silent challenge, prepared to give as good as he got. If you're quite done. Fine. I won't stab you with my tail. She tore her gaze from his, flushing a little. Masori. Better. He actually offered her his hand this time and, belatedly, she accepted it. Her fingers tightened around in his as he hoisted her to her feet. Oh gods. She'd really shacked up with some kinda monster, hadn't she? Her street cred was gonna be in the gutter after this. Still better than Carmen. At least this angel wasn't gonna tear her tail off for shagging one of his daughters. Not that he looked like he had any. Although that would be kinda kinky. Please stop staring at me as though I'm a hunk of meat. Staring. Who? Her. No way. Her nose certainly wasn't bleeding. And she definitely wasn't drooling after all that. Nope. Nah, no way. Naruto granted her a withering glance and released her hand as he stalked up the steps leading to the angelic embassy. She'd forgotten all about the blasted building, or why he'd been so keen on getting here in the first place. Didn't he want to talk someone? Probably the big boss himself. Didn't sound like it would go well. You're really headed in there, huh? He glanced over her shoulder. Aren't you coming? Her legs trembled just a little, but common sense prevailed. Her and him, alone, in a building with no prying eyes. She'd end up trying to bonk his brains out. Nope, nah, she shook her head. I'll wait outside, thank you very much. A distant explosion conjured a mushroom cloud. On second thought, right behind you, Tilda. 0.0.0.0. Someone was knocking on her door. As head seraphim, Sarah wasn't particularly happy to hear that sound, given that she presently wanted nothing more than lay her head down on her desk and sleep. Sleep, and preferably wake up from this awful nightmare she found herself trapped in, but no, apparently that wasn't happening today, Tilda. Sometimes, she really hated this job. Why couldn't Michael or one of the bloody archangels take over? She wanted a vacation. Right, because that lot still wasn't showing their faces, or maybe they were just wary after what happened to Adam. No, couldn't have that now, could they? She had to be the one to look prim and proper, when in reality, she craved nothing more than sweet escape. And someone was still knocking on her blessed door. Raising her head, Sarah swept a slightly trembling hand over her half-lidded eyes, scrubbed the sleep from them, then forced herself to sit up, reclaiming some small semblance of dignity. Clasping both hands before herself, she likewise took a moment to comport her thoughts and muster up her dignity, as was befitting of one given her rank and station. No such luck. Her wings drooped behind her almost immediately. She was so very tired. Naruto's abrupt descent had caused no small amount of chaos in the upper stratum, if only because no one had expected him to do so. He'd gone down there willingly, of his own volition, and hadn't fallen for it. That alone had been enough to foment unrest, but what he'd done next hadn't just stirred the pot, he'd gone and kicked it over. Because, you see, now he was demanding a meeting with a certain Morningstar. Loot had practically gone feral, she hadn't shut up about it since. The knocking intensified tenfold, loud and determined, punctuated by raised voices now and a loud bang. Time to face the music, she supposed. There was no point in delaying any longer. Enter, she declared briskly, dreading who might be on the other side. On cue, the door to Sarah's office swung open. Please don't let it be Loot. Please don't let it be Loot. For the love of all that is holy, don't let it be Loot. Yes, not Loot. Unfortunately, it was Emily standing before her. And was that Loot's broken body sprawled out in the hall behind her? It looked like someone had beaten her within an inch of her life, but Emily was the only one standing there and, oh. Oh, dear. Oh, very dear. Oh, very, very dear indeed. Angels did not curse, they could, but some chose not to, and never in her life had Sarah done so, but here and now, in this moment, Sarah was almost tempted to. Emily wasn't violent, had never been, probably never would be at that, and yet, her eyes did not lie. Sarah, the younger Seraphim, wrung both hands before her dress, violet eyes reflecting quiet anxiety to match her. Can we talk? Sarah looked past her, still unable to comprehend the scene of violence in the hallway beyond. What happened to Loot? Emily's gaze grew watery, tears welling up within. She said such awful things, so I put her to sleep for a while. It was for her own good. ... I see. She did not, but these were strange times, and she was grateful to have Loot silenced, if only for a little while. Well, war did you wish to discuss? Emily stared at her, glassy-eyed. What is Extermination Day? Say, Sarah, what was that bit about never cursing again? Shit on a stick. Fuck a duck. Damn this DAAAAAY. Although she towered well over 12 feet tall, Sarah had never felt so small. Her right eye twitched explosively as a muscle jumped in her jaw, but even that fleeting flicker of anger couldn't save her from the fiasco before her. She tried to muster a response, but when faced with such a guileless gaze, she couldn't help but falter. Emily was looking to her for answers, waiting for her to explain, and she couldn't. She could just stare. That blasted Naruto, he'd said something to her after all, hadn't he? This was all his fault. It had to be, she just knew it. At a loss, Sarah chose the only path she could. I can explain. A lone tear rolled down Emily's cheek. Sarah, what have you done? 0.0.0.0. Naruto was gone. Why? Why? He'd come running the moment he sensed him. By all rights, he should be here. So why wasn't he here? Blast it all, he'd known exactly where he would be. There had been no delay. He'd made a beeline directly for him with all due haste, not stopping once to save anyone in his path, with no interruptions besides. He wasn't entire proud of that last bit, but needs must, and he was in a hurry. There was no possible escape. Yet he was gone now, his trail cold, all sign of him lost in the chaos of his flight. All he had to show for his efforts were a band of blithering idiots shoving guns in his face. Carmine's goons, no doubt. He didn't pay them much heed at first, until one of the wounded wastrels mentioned the angel. Him. That had piqued his interest. He'd interrogated the lot of them, wrung out every scrap of sordid secrets he could, then killed them afterward. It was a matter of principle. Pride, one might say. He had a reputation to maintain, even down here. Only their overlord had run away to fight another day, he'd spared her on a whim, if only because Naruto had clearly deigned to fight with her and let her live. In honor of that, she would keep her life this day, and by her survival, further spread word of his deeds. Soon he would be known throughout all the rings. Naruto was bound to hear of him sooner or later, if they didn't blunder into one another. If he didn't hunt him down first. If he didn't lose his patience. Bracing himself, he looked to the skies, crouched down, and leapt. The hunt was on. 0.0.0.0. Naruto expected many things when that door opened. A titan of stone. A towering giant made of fire. A winged monstrosity with horns as large as they were tall. He did not expect a girl, least of all one so impeccably dressed. She wore a strange red suit open at the chest to reveal a white shirt and a black bow tie, which contrasted nice with her pale skin and bright, glowing red eyes. No, literally, her eyes were glowing, her sclera a strange shade of golden yellow to match her equally golden hair, which was bound beautifully behind her back. Quite the oddity, all in all. Hello, she called out, not seeing him at first, given how perfectly still he was. Anyone here? I signed the creepy sign in sheet, and you've got a succubus sleeping in the lobby. Poor Verosuke. Naruto planted his elbows against the table, sat up in his chair and pointedly coughed into a fist. Ahem. The girl took one look at him, sputtered and dropped her papers. Oh my goodness, why are you so tall? That was an awful lot of words at once, so much so that he couldn't help but tilt his halo-clad head. Come again. Somehow, she rallied, much to his amusement. Right, Sue, I'm Charlie. Dad couldn't make it, so he sent me. His jaw clicked open, and he forced it closed with a fist. Morningstar had a daughter. Angels could do that. She offered him her hand. Nice to meet you. Well, would you look at that? A nice person. An actual, legitimate, I do not have a mean bone in my body, person. How could someone down here be nice? Verosuke had been flawed, but she claimed to have been born here. Carmilla was a sinner who'd found herself her due to the mistakes she'd made while alive, but this girl, this young woman, was different. This girl had been born here, he could sense that much from the faint radiance suffusing her soul. But there was something different about her. A hint of divinity mixed with, just what was that? She squeaked a little and repeated herself, still holding out her hand to him. Nice to meet you. Rising from the table, he circled around it, took her fingers between his and shook them firmly. Naruto. And right back at ya. Please, have a seat. Charlie claimed the one next to his. You're not Adam, right? No. It's just, I've heard some interesting things about the leader of the Angels. He chuckled. We're under new management. Is that a good thing? Naruto smiled. 0.0.0.0. Miles away, a man dropped his ducks. I sense a disturbance. A disturbance indeed. 0.0.0.0. Charlie spoke a mile a minute. She had to, if only for fear of being shut down. Blast nerves. Or were they jitters? Semantics. Gotta keep talking. I'm so happy we got this opportunity to meet. There's this project I've been working on that I really want to talk to you about, and it's a solution to our biggest problem down here. Naruto's haloed head bobbed once. And what would that be? She beamed, quietly anxious. Overpopulation tilde. ... I agree. That is a problem. Continue. Just don't sing again, please. Much to her surprise, the angel didn't interrupt her further, but placed one hand beneath his chin and waved her on patiently with the other. It felt like he was listening to her. Not just humoring her, but actually listening. His bright gold eyes never left hers, and though he'd long since reclaimed his seat, which meant she'd nab the one right next to him, the better to show him her papers, he didn't seem concerned by the mess she was making. She had a lot of papers, all right. It was a presentation. Sue her. But the problem is, well. She paused, not quite certain how to phrase it without offending him. In the end, he answered for her. Purges. Yeah, she winced. Purges. Extermination Day. Charlie cringed. Relax. He waved a hand to soothe her spirit. I'm hardly going to snap at you for speaking your mind. His 10 wings twitched behind his back as he laughed. 10 wings. Daddy only had 6, and yet these wings looked frightfully fluffy. She kinda wanted to touch them. No. Focus. He was still talking. I came down here to see what it was like for myself. She perked up, almost daring to hope. So you're not in favor of Extermination Day? That remains to be seen. He indicated her with a wing, tempting her to touch it. Take you, for instance. Good soul, pure soul. You were born down here, right? I was, she conceded with a reluctant nod, not quite seeing where this was going. And yet you're a good person. He said. Another nod. Others are not. I disagree. She lurched to her feet, planting both hands on the table to stare at him. These are my people. Their souls. Human souls. Just the same as the ones you have up in heaven. Are they? He tilted his head. From what I've sensed and seen down here, this place ain't exactly a rose garden. Some people might belong here. No. Her hair swayed as she shook her head. You're wrong. Sinners made mistakes, sure, but everyone makes mistakes. He fell silent at that, and his silence concerned her. It would have been so much easier if he were a rude asshole who didn't give a flying pig about her dream, or any of it, but that was the problem. He genuinely did. Did you know I've already been shot at, today? Charlie winced. I'm sorry. Don't be. I was just making a point. I landed here, and several people tried to kill me. Would you say people like that deserve redemption? URK. She knew she shouldn't be afraid. It wasn't like she was in any real danger. But still, angels were. Still, well, angels. She'd seen them, heard the stories, and all the destruction they caused. Still, she had hope. If they were willing to talk, that was a good thing, right? Right. Had to be. Vaggie said this wouldn't work. Maybe it wouldn't. But she had to try. This was her chance. She couldn't be wrong, right? I mean, I want what's best for my people. And what is best for them? Naruto asked. I don't know the answer to that. Do you? In a perfect world, where do you want them to go? Well, heaven sounds lovely and it is, he confirmed with a nod, nice and shiny, too. But ask yourself this: how can you tell if someone is truly redeemed? Does everyone deserve a chance to go there? Yes. And yet. Her voice warbled. Well. Easy. I'm not trying to step on your dream here. His smile flashed out once more, slightly stressed as she sat back down. I am a good guy. I want what's best for people. I don't enjoy seeing people suffering, but ever since I came down here, I find myself wondering about the system we have here may not be the right one. She gasped. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. He gave his shoulders a shrug. I don't have the answer for that. Heck, I don't think any of this is even real, to be honest. Like I said earlier, you don't belong down here in the mud and muck. You were born down here. You didn't ask for any of this, and yet here you are, trying to do good. For that alone, you deserve praise. Heat rose to her cheeks. Veggie seldom said anything like that where her dream was concerned. Thanks. I just want to help people. And there's nothing wrong about that. Naruto temporized with a raised hand. But some people can't be helped. I mean, redemption. His brow shot into his hair. Of sinners. Is that even possible? Have you seen it happen before? She tucked her head into her chin. No. Then why do you believe it can happen? He prodded her gently. She glared at him, eyes glowing. I have to. No one else is willing to try to change anything. That made him smile. Good answer. I'll be honest. There's a part of me that just wants to scrap the current system and start over. Charlie sucked in a sharp breath. Was he talking about a war? You wouldn't do that, right? I'd like to say no, but there's something wrong with this place. He turned his eyes to the stained glass windows above and tutted softly. I'm not sure if it's you, or me, or what, but I don't think the afterlife should be like this. Heaven's nice. He shrugged a shoulder. But it should be better. Perfect. Not the petty version I know. Nothing's perfect. But it should be. He thumped a fist down, startling her. I mean, it's heaven. It's in the name. But if you saw it, you'd see the cracks, the flaws, the mistakes. Palming his face, he looked away from her for a long moment and heaved a long suffering sigh. We shouldn't be sitting up there, resting on our laurels. We ought to be out on earth doing good deeds, making things better. I just don't know anymore. She was losing him. Had to act fast. I brought more papers and portfolios. There's no need. He shook his head, pale hair swaying. To be honest, I'm still making up my mind. I've had some good examples down here, some bad. She looked down, made somewhat crestfallen by his remark. So you don't agree with me? It's complicated. I'm fairly certain this isn't my afterlife, ya know. Charlie's brain fizzled. What? Naruto beamed at her. Surprising, isn't it? I've had the pure world described to me by folks in passing before, and honey, this ain't it. He chuckled at something she didn't understand. Which means your afterlife might not be real. Neither heaven nor hell. In a word, fiction. Some might even call it satire. I mean, really, me, wings. What were they thinking? Waving a hand, he scoffed. I'm far too flawed for that. So where does that leave us? Who decides what's good and what's evil? My definition and yours differ by, well, definition. Let me ask you this. Steepling his fingers, he laid his chin atop them and stared at her. Where is the justice? He was asking questions now. Hard questions, painful questions, questions that made her think. For the first time in the long time, she found herself questioning her dream. It hurt. But she couldn't let a question like that go unanswered now, could she? Scooting closer, she dared to lay a hand on his. Justice is what we make of it. His brow shot straight up into his hair. How do you function? By breathing. I just take things one day at a time. For some reason that made him laugh. You have a good heart. Aha, opportunity knocked. Good enough to get rid of Extermination Day. Naruto heaved a sigh. Charlie. She clasped both hands before her face and bounced in place. Please, please, please. He tore his gaze from hers and looked to the ceiling. Quote. I can promise an exemption this year at the very least. Might be a chance to set up a better system. Which meant no purge this year. She'd take it. Are you really strong enough to enforce that, though? His wings flared behind him. Who's gonna stop me? This time, curiosity got the better of Charlie. So fluffy. Couldn't resist. Must touch. She dared to run a hand along the length of one wing, brushing his feathers, only for him to jerk back with a yelp. Long lashes fluttered in a baffled blink and a small, shy smile touched her lips. You're ticklish. Surprisingly, he tucked his wings in with a scowl. Warn me next time. Her eyes inadvertently strayed back to them. Does that count? Naruto frowned. Charlie, no. She pouted. Boo. In that instant, an idea dawned. Oh, oh, oh. She waved her hand in the air. I know. You can stay at my hotel and watch me rehabilitate sinners. How's that sound? Then you'll have something to show in your report to heaven. An angel in a hotel full of people who want me dead. He balked, incredulous. That sounds like a bad idea. Even if he did disguise himself, it was a recipe for disaster. She kicked at the floor. You at least visit for a few hours. Depends. Would a visit likely change my mind? Charlie raised a finger and opened her mouth to reply. Naruto squinted at her. Think very carefully before you finish that sentence, Miss Morningstar. She looked away and kicked at the ground again. Wheel.